Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. As always, I am your host, Matt Tardio. Today, I brought on a special guest. I brought in Anthony Aguilar. You guys might know him. You've probably seen him on BBC and several other news networks. Today, he was being interviewed over on Tucker Carlson. And out of full transparency, we are going to have a discussion in front of you. And so to go over for the agenda for the day for you guys, I'm going to come up, I'm going to introduce him, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to talk about how we came about talking. We've actually only been talking for about a couple hours. In that couple hours, I have decided, with the information that has been provided to me, that I cannot, in good faith, publish a particular article that I was getting ready to publish tonight. Anthony, let's just go ahead and dive right into this, sir. I'm going to go ahead and bring you up. So let's just go ahead and break this down for the people. In your own words, how did we actually end up meeting?
So I was, we're both in the Special Forces community, and I was contacted by someone that informed me about the podcast, and I don't have any social media, so I wasn't aware of it. So I was then provided with the, an email or a website link to your website. So I just did a information request to get a hold of you. And then you texted me back later this afternoon and we talked on the phone. And, for me, the why is, it doesn't really bother me too much about what people may say or may think, but you're a fellow Green Beret. That means a lot to me. What we do, what we've been through, and your brethren. And so it matters a lot to me what fellow Green Berets, what they think, but also how I'm representing our Special Forces regiment. So I really just wanted to talk and just kind of talk through things. And I think we really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, and I also want to make it clear that when you and I began speaking, like on that initial phone call, one, I was on a different phone call. It was an important call. I'll let you know I have to take it, and then I ended up calling you back.
Yep.
Did that phone call start off slightly confrontational?
It was kind of like, hey, what are you, why did you say this and why did you say that? And it was, but then
in both directions. To be clear.
In both directions. Yeah, absolutely. And then we, I think there was, we were both kind of talking about some things where I think the light bulb went off in both of our heads to where things that I was saying were things that you knew and things that you were saying were things that I knew. And we're like,
yeah.
Not be confrontational and take a moment to just hear each other out. And
that's what ended up happening. We ended up pausing and listening.
We did. We paused and we listened to each other, and we just spoke our truth to each other in terms of this is what I know and this is what I know. And then it came to be that there's a lot of things that we both know separately that when brought together, it kind of paints a better picture of what's going on.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people that are watching this, like, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this, it's important for you to understand this. Okay. And I have some tough questions for Anthony tonight, and he is aware of it, and we're going to go over those. He's also been given some freedom to speak here. And we are going to get into these situations. We are going to talk about them. But prior to that, there is some error that needs to be cleared. I stated that Anthony Aguilar, I stated this live, that he quit on May 30th. And honestly, I can't state that as a fact at this moment in time. That's what I was led to believe. And until I get an additional chunk of proof, I'm going to go ahead and retract that statement. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yes. Thank you.
I need, in order to fairly make that assessment, I need an additional chunk of proof. And the reason I need that additional chunk of proof, we're going to go ahead and put that up on the screen right here. I'm going to put it up on the screen for the folks at home so they can see it. You guys blow that up nice and big. You guys can see that. This is what we are about to go over. What it says is Anthony Aguilar saying, I am 100% serious. These names are redacted for security purposes. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it says, you've got pictures of one Amir that's down here in the bottom right of the photograph. And it says, wants everything his way on his schedule at his beck and call. And UG's underwrite that and allow it. My advice, keep your heads down, stay safe. You all have my number. Please stay in touch. This was truly, truly, truly been a great experience. I'm very grateful. Sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So on May 27th, the second in charge of the entire contract. So there was a country contract team leader and an assistant country contract team leader. On the 27th, the assistant country contract team leader resigned in protest over some issues that he had with really a lot of the same issues that operating procedure provided to the men on the ground. So he resigned in protest, and it kind of left that. Yeah. So
you'd broken up quite a bit. I want you to go ahead and make that statement again, please.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, on May 27th, the guy that was the kind of the second in charge of the overall contract, the 2IC, if you will, he resigned in protest over some things that he felt were just substandard. Things that I felt as well: lack of a standard operating procedure, lack of rules of engagement, and an escalation of force. And for him at that point, because what we all experienced on the 26th on Site 1, when we were overwhelmed by thousands of civilians that were racing to get food, he felt that there were too many things to fix, that we couldn't just keep doing it. So he resigned. That was on the 27th. So through the 28th, we kind of went through this vacuum of leadership. I was still in my position as the Joint Tactical Operations and Operations team leader. And on the 29th, the actual guy in charge of the whole contract, he approached me and asked if I would like to step into that position as the assistant country team leader. And I told him that I would need a day to think on it. The position in leadership, but it was more of a personality conflict. We didn't necessarily get along. Difference of backgrounds, difference of experiences, and didn't really mesh well. But I felt that if he wants me to be in that position, that I can give my leadership to that position. So in the role that I was in currently as the Joint Tactical Operations and Operations team leader, I had a team of 6, so there were 7 of us, and that's where you see the Beersheba 7, because we were my operations team and we were separate from the majority of the contract teams that were in Ashdod and Ashkelon to the north. We were in Beersheba, so we were closer to the headquarters of the IDF Southern Command. And I had really gotten close with those guys in the few days we've been working there, long days, and had a lot of respect for those guys. One was a Green Beret, former Green Beret. Another guy was a Navy veteran. All of them on our team were military veterans, and just a great group of guys. And so I told them that, hey, I got offered this job, and that's where you see the responses like, "Oh, are you serious?" Because they couldn't believe that the guy in charge would want me to be his second, because we didn't always see eye to eye on things. So they were like, "Oh, are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm serious. I'm going to do it." And so the reason I was, kind of given that farewell is because I was going to be moving from Beersheba all the way to Ashdod. So pretty much, if you've seen the map of Israel, Beersheba is south central, Ashdod's all the way to the north by Tel Aviv. So I wasn't going to see them again, because they would be doing their operations down south in the Karim Shalom, and I'd be punching up north to Ashdod to be doing a lot more of the administrative, second in charge XO type of stuff with Tel Aviv and Ashdod. So I was just kind of telling them farewell, and keep your heads down there in Beersheba. It's Beersheba and Karim Shalom, right on the edge of Karim Shalom, especially where they worked, right on the edge of Gaza. So That was not me quitting. That was not me resigning. That was me taking on a new position, promoted to the assistant country team leader, and moving to Ashdod.
Now, I'm gonna also say this with that statement. That is actually, the fact that he had been promoted is actually backed up by several other statements. So I'm going to say that again. The fact that he had been promoted that day is backed up by several other statements. Not that Mr. Aguilar has provided to me, but that I have obtained separately. I want to make that perfectly clear. So not that he had provided me, but that I had obtained through my own research. I hope that is perfectly clear. Now, I saw people saying that I was going to get backed into a corner or something. No, I'm not flipping. And I'm not stating that everything we're about to go over in this podcast is something that I believe. But there is something that I believe. And it's something that Anthony and I have talked about. And that is, I know of at least one false statement. This is due to personal interviews that I've conducted. I know of at least one false statement that the attorney for GHF had made. And that is that Anthony Aguilar only made that singular trip into Gaza, that you had only gone and visited that one site. Is that accurate? I know that to be an untrue statement. I know that to be an untrue statement before we even talked. Right? Now, there is other things also, which right now, I think you and I have agreed that we are not going to be discussing. That goes with some of the, how we would call them, like team room issues, right? Things like that, like family problems, right? We're going to leave those family problems off the table for right now, because those family problems go into something else that is, in my view, a security concern. And so with that being said, I'm not going to do it. Now, there is a second false statement that I've been given numerous times by several people. And that false statement is that IDF tanks are not allowed and do not operate within a near vicinity of the GHF sites. I'm going to say that again. Something that I now know to be false, that I have been told numerous times, is that IDF tanks do not operate within close proximity to GHF sites. I've seen these tanks so close that they could dang near spin their main gun and knock down a fence. A lot. And you have my personal assurance and my personal word for that. You also have my personal assurance and you have my personal word that IDF tanks within very close proximity to these GHF sites have been firing coaxial machine guns. Those two things are in complete contrast to what I have been told. So with that being said, Mr. Aguilar, we are now going to talk about some other things. And I think it's fair that we go through this. And for those of you that think for some reason I flipped, I don't think you've been following the dang channel long enough. I've called out the IDF a couple different times, and I have told you guys, I'm about speaking the dang truth. And when the truth comes out, I'm going to tell it to you. That's why you're here. You want to get pushed to narrative? Go somewhere else. Because the truth is that war's not pretty. The truth is that sometimes things happen. And the truth is that both sides, in my opinion, have an agenda. And we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about why things are the way they are. We're going to do something, in my opinion, that I don't think anybody on mainstream media has done with Mr. Aguilar yet. And we are going to discuss why things are the way they are behind things. And we're going to do this with the respect of two fellow combat veterans that actually know what the hell they're talking about. So let's start there. The first question that I know everybody wants me to ask you, which I'm going to bring up and state: GHF attorney ended up releasing your daily sit rep that got passed out over Signal that ended up showing Amir on it. And for those that don't know, Amir is the young boy that Mr. Aguilar claims had gotten killed. I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. I have not seen any evidence of that. And truthfully, with some of the things that I've seen, I am not prepared at this moment in time to say that that is a false statement. Now, I want you to take the gravity of that into this situation. Take the gravity of what I just told you and apply that and use some damn critical thinking as we go into this discussion. Mr. Aguilar, the floor is yours. Why was that photograph of him happy attached to the sit rep?
So the sit reps that I sent out daily or evening depending on what time I got back from the sites to the headquarters, those kind of the evening sit reps, they were called an impact statement. I was directed by UG Solutions leadership to do those. That wasn't necessarily something that I was happy to do it, but I was directed to do it. What's important to understand is that the security element, there was a static security element and there was a mobile security element. So imagine, if you will, if you're a platoon leader, or if you're in combat, you're an SFODA commander, you've got your guys that are on the trucks and you've got your guys on the ground. And the guys on the ground, sometimes they see things that the guys in the trucks don't get to see, that they just hear about. So on that site that day, that was on site number 2 on the 28th of May, the mobile team security, UG security folks were on the back of the site in the Sandcats, the armored vehicles that we had. So they could see out the windshield, but they didn't have context to what was going on, and they're just kind of not as aware of what was going on. On that particular day, there were a lot of children on site 2 that day, just to the different populations going to different sites, whether it's site 1, 2, or 3. This particular site that day that Amir was at had more younger civilians than typical, and that was noticeable when the IDF gave us the notification that they'd move the civilians off. When we started doing that, but the guys in the mobile truck had seen Amir, and that there was some other children that came up to us along with Amir before he walked up to us. Kids had been walking by and saying thank you, and they were happy that they had food. And so the guys in the truck saw this, and that was something we hadn't seen before, where there was more kids and actually coming up and talking to us. So when Amir had left, had moved out from the site into what I would call the beaten area of the machine gun fire, the guys in the mobile truck couldn't see what was going on, but they heard what had happened. And when the guys, we all get back in the trucks. So imagine, you're in combat, you're on the objective, someone gets hurt or something happens, and you jump back in the vehicles and you're leaving the objective. And the guys that were in the trucks don't really know what goes on until you get back to SP or get back to the fob. So it's kind of that situation where things had happened so quickly, and we left to go back. And a lot of the guys were distraught by it. A lot of the guys were, just like, hey, what happened? Like, why were they being pushed out so fast? Why were they shooting in that direction? There was just a lot of questions. And I felt that it was important. So that message that I sent out, my sit rep, if you will, my impact statement, those weren't sit reps that went up to GHF or went up to SRS, the higher headquarters. Those stayed internal. Those were for us only, to my knowledge. They were for us. And what I wanted to let the men know, especially the men on the mobile team that day, mobile team 3 and mobile team 4, that didn't understand what happened, was that, because all they had heard was that people had been shot and potentially some women and children. I wanted them to know the impact they made, the difference that they made, from someone that was there. And this whole situation, being on the ground in Gaza and seeing the devastation and the destruction and the just everything that was going on was hard on all of us. I mean, all of us being combat veterans. But when you go into this situation and you see the level of destruction and you see the level of destitute, just people in need, it weighs heavy. And this, by this day, this was the third day we had done distributions in Gaza in need. And so that weighs heavy. And I wanted the men to know that, you know, you're doing good. The things that are out of our control, you can't focus on that. So even though I wasn't necessarily in a team leader position on the ground, I was the operations lead, but not a team leader. I'm still a leader. And I felt that if they're going to task me with sending out these messages, that the men need to know that they're doing a good job. They need to know that, you know, same thing in a military unit in combat. You know, you don't bitch down. You don't gripe to your men. You motivate your men. You bitch up. So plenty of complaints going up from me, but to the men, I felt that it was important for them to know that, hey, I wanted them to feel what I felt, I should say. Because when I was there with Amir and the other gentleman that was with me, the other contractor who was also a combat veteran, that moment that we shared where we felt like, you know, we're doing something, like we're making a difference, like this matters. I wanted them to feel that. I wanted them to appreciate that and know that they're not, you know, we're not failing, that we're succeeding.
Right. All right. So you're going to have to forgive me because I know you and I had this conversation earlier, and I was prepping something else because I think it's important to show here in just a little bit. And it has to do with something that the GHF attorneys put out and provided. So we'll get there in a sec. I want to finish this part. Did you explain with Amir what had happened to him directly?
If you would like me to, I will.
By all means, explain from your point of view, because what's going to happen here is we talk about that. All right. Yeah. As we go into that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to interview as combat veterans should. Right. There's stuff that you and I understand that goes without saying. And if there's fortunately, I've been doing this long enough. If you say something that I know is not going to be clarified or is not going to be clear to people, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to ask you to clarify. So please.
So on the distribution sites where we were, the UG Solutions contractors were dealing with very, very large populations of people. Again, we had not been provided with any rules of engagement, any escalation of force measures. We had done no rehearsals. We had not done any standard operating procedure. We weren't a cohesive unit that, you know, went to a collective training event before we went forward and we were all lockstep and knew what the SOPs were. We had none of that. Everybody brought a different flavor of experience, whether it was law enforcement, military. Some folks had never been in law enforcement or the military. Varying levels of experience. Some of the behavior of some in terms of the escalation of force was mirroring what the IDF would do in terms of the controlling the crowd by fire or communicating with the crowd by shooting. It was a method that the IDF do employ. So now, as we're moving,
now let me stop there because I want to bring this up. How many people are we talking about
on the site for security?
No, I don't want to get into those specific numbers because that's for security concerns, right? So we're not going to talk about that. But I want to explain to people here, for those that have followed the podcast for a while, just as I told you on the phone, I talked about the security situation and how I felt the sites were put up and there wasn't good outer perimeters that were established, which meant that people could maneuver around and it was a problem for you guys, and that you had essentially nothing other than dirt berms that were separating, for the most part, between y'all and the population. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, that is an accurate statement. It was, we were very vulnerable.
Okay.
If someone were to do a threat vulnerability assessment on those sites, they would have gotten an F.
Right. And again, this is crap that I stated. I actually didn't state a threat vulnerability assessment, right? But it was very obvious. right?
Yeah.
That was an issue to me, and I've stated that numerous times. I stated it from the first images we started to get out of there. The first time I got satellite images, I was like, security situation's jacked. All right.
And it was,
so with that being said,
yeah.
With that being said, and we're talking about thousands of people because we need to paint this picture for them. You're talking about thousands of people moving towards these GHF locations. Is there clear signage outside that's pointing these people in the right direction to go? And if there was clear signage, how big would it need to be for these thousands of people that are coming in to know the direction in which they need to go? I'm assuming not everybody wants to get shot. Uh-oh.
I'm coming back. I'm good. I just had to put my device on the charger so I don't lose you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and that's right. The situation that we found ourselves in Gaza on the sites, there were a lot of risks, a lot of vulnerabilities that put all of us, not just the contractors, but also the IDF, in a very precarious tactical position, just based on how the sites were, but also in a pretty risky situational awareness position because of the way the berms were built up around the site and how the berms that were in between where the IDF positions were and we were and where the civilians left the sites. There were a lot of things that put all of us at risk. So, I don't think that the Israeli Defense Forces in their positions were deliberate or quote unquote out for blood. I think that they were put in a position that both defensively and to maintain security was practically untenable.
Right. And so from the best that I can grasp from here in the United States is that what you have these sites that have been hastily established because of the battleground situation, UNRWA getting cut off, and there was for, what was it, a 5-6 week time span where there was a complete and total blockade until everything ended up getting sorted out.
That's right.
When that reopened, and because again, I need to bring gravity and paint a clear picture for everybody because the devil is in the details and the details matter, especially when we're talking about something as serious as you are. And so you have these essentially dirt berms that are surrounding the sites. You have some fences that direct everybody into the entry control points or ECPs, right?
Right.
Other than that, it's kind of funneled out and then everything's open all the way around. So where the gates are at, where people are coming in and then being redirected out after they pick up the humanitarian aid. Other than that, everything else is just wide open space outside of those dirt berms. Accurate statement?
Yeah, and the way
Okay.
I've kind of thought about this to try to make it.
So if you don't mind, just so the other point that I'm trying to make, because I think that providing the information on both sides is something that everybody misses. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, do you know when UGS and the IDF actually started constructing these sites and how, because you're talking about massive amounts of dirt, number one, that got moved. You're talking about logistical areas. You're talking about making sure cleared routes are there. And you're talking about planning out these sites plus future combat operations. And so there's limited spaces. I've made this comparison before that you have Gaza that's about the size of the city of Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. For comparison, you still have an estimated, 15 to 20,000 Hamas jihadists that are running around inside of there. But in addition to that, right, you have this precarious situation where 2 million people live in various places, shoved over into Al-Mawasi, shoved into, like Khan Yunis, right? Like shoved in, a lot of people ended up getting shoved in the south over the last almost 2 years. So you've got a big chunk of that 2,000 that's down there, or 2 million, that's down there. And with that being said, you have hastily established sites. I'm going to call them hastily established because of the limited time frame. Even 2 months to build 4 large logistical areas like that, not that much time. But if you do it, it does need to be done right, in my opinion, because this ends up falling back, right? And just as I said, and I stated it back in May when we started seeing these sites, that this is almost like a leadership failure and that problem needed to be solved, right? That's my opinion. And if it's not ready to go, like a 70% plan violently executed is better than a 95, right? Whatever that old saying is that we all know. But this doesn't seem like a 70% plan. This seemed more like a 40-50% plan, right? Like you were missing the outer security perimeters and things of that nature that these sites actually do require to prevent what occurred on the 27th, which was the sites being overrun.
Absolutely. And not, there's that aspect of the ability to secure the outer perimeter effectively, but then there's even the ability from in the site, even on the berms, to see. One of the pictures that I had shared with you of the tank that's maneuvering out in front of Site 1, you got to look pretty hard to see it. The terrain out there it's something else. It's not clear fields of fire. It's not.
Right.
It's not like looking at an urban area where vehicles stand out. It's hard to see the terrain out there.
Right. And we're getting to Amir. But the point is that in order to explain this situation, you have to have an accurate grasp, an actual visual mind frame of what we're talking about here. A dirt berm with 1 million+ people waiting outside of it, coming in to get food on a daily basis. That's it. In 0 outer security perimeters, IDF staged outside, and U.S. contractors on the inside. And those people are coming with FOMO in mind, fear of missing out. They want to get food. They want to take it back to their families. They want all of those things, and that causes panic. So with that being said, what was in your opinion or in your personal testimony? Because again, I've seen some videos that in my opinion can qualify your statement, which would be machine gun and round strikes near civilians. And I ended explaining this to people on the channel by saying, listen, my experience in a combat zone is firing warning shots over people's heads. They know you're not going to shoot them. It really doesn't do any good. Like, I've done it. And you're like, what the hell, man? I've literally, I was sniping at a dude from frickin' like almost 1,000 meters away, trying to get him off the side of this mountain one time. And I had to walk the rounds in to within about like a foot away from him before he actually got off his butt and moved. Right. And that is a very precarious situation on that long range of a shot to be able to get somebody to get up and go. Right. Because I'm not confident enough yet that this guy needs to die, but I know I don't like him where he's at. So I need to move him. This is something that happens. What we're about to talk about, that is a precision rifle with a trained sniper. What we're about to talk about is something a little bit different. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So in that talk about, a warning shot with a trained sniper on a precision optic with a precision rifle, the method to which the machine gun on the Markava tank, which is an area weapon.
Just start that over because you froze. You said the method and then you froze. So go ahead, come back.
Okay, so the method that the IDF were using in controlling the population with fire was from the coaxial machine gun, which is an area fire weapon. It's not a precision weapon. And to their credit, they weren't necessarily making precision shots. They were using them more so to shoot towards the berms or to shoot in a general area to keep the crowd from moving a certain direction. So case in point, on site number 2, as the population was leaving the site and going north, in this particular occasion, you don't want the population to go east, because that takes them right into an IDF secure perimeter. So the IDF want to keep them moving west. So firing into the berm to the north as they make that turn was kind of what became the normal way. There was a beaten path or a beaten zone from machine gun fire on that berm. And this particular day, because of the crowd had left Site 2, the crowd was larger than we had seen before, and Site 2 is very small, and so we're smaller than the others comparatively. And as the Palestinian as the civilians were leaving the site and going out the exit area, imagine you have these metal fenced in lanes with a berm obscuring all of that field of fire and that view, and they're rushing out of the site, and they ran into that beaten zone or that cone of fire that the IDF were in placing as a way to keep people going west. So in doing so, when you're on foot and you walk into if you were to walk into the beaten zone of where an area weapon like a coax machine gun is firing, that's a lot of bullets out there. It's like walking into a bee's nest. So yeah, some folks were hit, some folks were fatally hit, and some folks were grazed, and some folks were able to get out of there without getting hit. But it was just this perfect storm, if you will, this combination of loss of situational awareness, a lot of people, terrain that probably was not suitable for observations of field of fire to establish a good security perimeter. Couple that with as Matt said, with that, you have folks that are starving, that are grabbing for food and trying to leave at the same time. It's not a controlled crowd. I mean, we're not talking about folks waiting in a nice controlled line at Disney World. We're talking about a lot of chaos.
Right, and this is actually for those that don't know and that haven't seen it, it is actually backed up by some of those other videos. And as you just stated, that there is, well, actually, I stated it. You don't have a lot of room inside Gaza to establish these distribution sites. You really don't, and you kind of make the best with what you have. And so the failure that I would point out is not having that outer security ring and proper channeling to protect the guys on site and also the civilians that are attempting to move into the site. It's a security concern from physical security standpoint, and two, it's also kind of a logistical matter when you actually think about moving that amount of people going in and out. Now, the other thing that I'll bring up, as I had just explained, was it is not outside of the realm of possibilities. Let me explain this. It is not outside of the realm of possibilities to believe that when, one, there are videos to which you can see rounds impacting very close to civilians, which would suggest that they are, warning shots that are pushing them in certain directions. Some of those shots I've seen land within just a couple feet of people, and the deflection on those, like machine guns, just in general, I promise you that every single one of those shots are well within the known deflection, which you do not want to be shooting at people with a machine gun, because there is a high probability of a ricochet and a hit. Those are facts. Those are just facts. The other thing is there is a difference, and you can also attest to this, and I will attest this. And it's something that I mentioned earlier. There is a difference between firing a machine gun with a trained machine gunner behind it that has a good handle on that weapon system, that is pushing forward nice and hard on his bipods, that's leaning into that gun and has good controlled shots. You can actually get pretty decent shot groups, from like 10 meters away, as long as you have a good gunner that knows what the hell he's doing. Coax is something that's completely different, mounted on tanks. Now, I've never been inside of a Merkava tank, but I have mounted coaxial machine guns before. I was in a mechanized infantry unit once upon a time, and I can tell you that those things are rickety as hell, and that they are, in fact, area fire weapons. You are not getting that same tight shot group. Additionally, those guns are zeroed on that tank, right? And they do have, like, every time you take it off and you remount it, you end up having to zero those dang things. And so, one, you have a point of failure of proper zero. You also have another point of failure, which could be whether or not they were ranged correctly going through that environment for each shot that they're going out and throwing. But last, you also have the fact that they're coaxial machine guns and that they are rickety as hell, just in general, as they're mounted, right? And then you also have a gunner with a joystick that's moving that sucker around in order to kind of fan that target. And again, it's an area fire weapon system. And again, round strikes that close are well within like dangerous deflection zone, right? Like it's not okay.
And then there's also the training of the gunner and the crew themselves. Most of these, I wouldn't say most, all of the units in the South, from Southern Command in Gaza are the reservists that were called up. So, not they were called up quickly. Right around the time we got there, there was that 10,000 reserve call up surge to go into the South for Operation Gideon's Chariot. So he had quite a few soldiers that probably didn't have a lot of time behind their respective assigned weapon system, especially if they were on, crewed in a tank or on a machine gun or some other type of crewed weapon system. They probably didn't get a lot of well, probably they didn't get a lot of time to train before they went right into Gaza.
Right. Yeah, I see several comments that are coming down. Danny says that the coax on a Merkava is actually pretty stable. And I saw another one. It was pertinent, and I was looking for it because I forgot what it was. But we'll get there in a second. I promise you that. Blue Dragon. Coaxials are definitely hard to control the shots. It's a thing, right? Even on a tank, let's say that Merkava is like got good tight tolerances on it and stuff like that. It's still inside Gaza. It's still been out there rumbling for God only knows how long. Things do get shaken up. They do get loose. This is the point that I'm trying to make. These things do happen. In your opinion, do you feel like the IDF was purposefully mowing down civilians? Or do you feel like they were, from your observation, attempting to control crowds and keeping sites from getting overran?
No, and as one of the, so when we did distributions, when things did not go well, when there was issues that I needed to be addressed outside of just routine, the IDF, we would go to their location and sit down in their combat outposts and do an AAR with them. And on that particular occasion, in that particular spot, from that event on that day, there were the IDF position that was firing on that day. There was, they felt it. It wasn't, they were not out there intentionally shooting women and children. It affected them.
And that's, I think, something also that's very important. And it's something that I talked to you about on the phone. It's something that I've mentioned before here on this show. And this is a serious conversation. We're treating it very serious for that reason. Because when you start talking about this stuff, there's not a single man that I am aware of that has been responsible for taking the life of even an enemy combatant that later turned out to be a child that was happy about it. Not one. I know men that have lost, taken their own lives over it, and I've seen people go into very dark holes because of it. And so I do believe that when he says that, yes, this absolutely affected those people, that's also important to understand. And again, we're talking about, I've never operated in that environment, right? I've been in some pretty shitty spots, right? I've been in Paktika, I've been in Kabul, I've been in Nangarhar, I've been in Mazar-e Sharif, I've been in Faryab, I've been in a lot of different places, right? Having that amount of people rushing into a site, the only comparison that I have is a riot in Iraq. And I've stated it before, even before you came out, that is the most scared I've ever been in my life, being faced with a wall of people coming at me, because you never know if your head's going to end up on Al Jazeera, cut off the next day. So it's one of those things that until you experience it, it's also hard to explain to people. And I think it's one of those things that just sucks. It sucks for the people to be in that position. It also sucks for the soldiers. It's kind of one of those this sucks. It's just, it sucks. I don't know.
And that was only the second day of all day distribution. On the 26th, we did some. The 27th was a full day. This is only the second full day we'd actually executed distribution. So this is something that was new to not only us, but was also new to the IDF to have, because they'd been in position for a while. So what we did the day before on Site 1, all of these IDF units at Site 2 and Site 3, different units, not all, it's not the same guys at each site every time. There's different units. They heard about what happened at Site 1 the day before. So everybody's a little bit you're right. When you're,
now
I
we
did the
need to
math
control
on
this
based on the number of, of security on the site and people that are coming in, and the numbers would, I'm not going to say the exact number because I don't want to give away composition disposition, but
Right.
it would astound you in terms of the, the one per ratio when you think about the thousands of people that are coming onto a site, and you realize that you have no control, you have no recourse other than hoping that someone's not armed, and hope is not a good method. So
Nope.
for the IDF and for everyone there, there's always this sense of this heightened alertness. But again, this is only the second time we've done distribution. The massive crowd coming into the site, the people swarming through to get the aid and then pushing off the site, and these large numbers of people moving through the operational area, that hadn't been normalized in our operational cycle yet, because it's only the second time we've done it. So
Okay, so Amir took place on day 2.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in day 1,
We had been overrun.
you'd been overran. And so now there is, I guess, how you would say, like, more of a push to make sure that the crowds are controlled so that doesn't occur again, because it is a huge operational concern.
Well, it's kind of like when
are you aware?
if a dog, if you see a dog for the first time and you go to pet it and it bites you, and so the next time you want to come back, you're hesitant because that dog bit you.
Yep.
Maybe he's not going to bite you again, but you already have that experience, so you're kind of like, I'm a little ready for this. So on day 2 at site number 2, everybody, the feeling was this palatable tension of like, is this gonna go down like it did yesterday? Because so it was only the second day of doing distribution. We were still figuring our stuff out.
Okay. So I told you there's tough questions. I'm going to ask you tough questions. And this one came in from a viewer, Smokey Sargent, I believe is his whole thing. He says, why didn't you clarify that before, that the IDF was not intentionally firing on those civilians, like such as Amir, I guess in this case?
So one thing to realize in certain interviews with media, that there are parts of interviews that you don't see, that are cut out, that are and then there's some interviews where you don't even get the chance to say it. And I will say this tonight, and I've said it before, I have never said that I felt that the IDF in that situation were shooting at them on purpose. I've never said that.
Okay.
I don't think that. There are people that have assumptions that, the IDF are intentionally shooting at women and children. I don't believe that, because having been in combat and having seen that before, and knowing the IDF soldiers that I'd seen there, like I said, it was hard on them. It was, and I mean, in some of these soundbite snippet interviews, you only get a minute and a half to talk. You don't get this long form dialogue.
And I think that I think that that's almost not fair, because there is more complications to this situation than a 30-minute interview can get. And there is media personnel that will direct a conversation. They're very good. They're skilled. This is what they do for a living. And they don't have the same understanding as you and I. And fortunately, we both have the combat experience going in and looking at this. And I've got the media side going in and looking at this. And I'm also very familiar with the situation.
And I'll also say, in terms of the explanation, how we're talking, spending the 25 years I spent in the Army and I got out, I didn't get out years ago and have been working in the civilian world, learning how, to communicate in civilian talk. I got out of the Army like a few months ago.
Right.
And then so now finding myself with these interviews and stuff, I explain things with the explanation that the people I'm talking to understand situations like that. Like, surely any soldier would understand that this type of situation would be dynamic and complex, and that, of course, other soldiers aren't shooting at children on purpose. I didn't think that was something I needed to state until now. I realized that that's taken out of context. So I'm learning that I'm not speaking to people that always understand the nuances of environments like this, in terms of, a securing a distribution site with thousands of people in the middle of a combat zone.
Right. So next we're going to talk about, and it was, again, if we echo back to the opening conversation that we had when we went live, which was, how did that conversation go when you and I both started talking, right? Because one of the main things that you and I got in a bit of a freaking gripe about was tank shooting on a vehicle. I informed you that I had several statements and that I had some credible sources, which I am starting to judge credibility of now, and I can state that, that tanks were not operating in near vicinity. Therefore, these shots had to have been taken from further away, and that you didn't have good eyes on target. And I will state this openly. You have provided me credible evidence, more than enough, that tanks are operating in extremely close vicinity to these GHF sites. I can say that I can attest to seeing probably about a dozen or so documented cases of this taking place. And I haven't even finished looking at everything yet. That was just within about 30 minutes of some of the stuff that you provided me, to include other things that we won't get into that suggest that they are operating on a daily basis directly next to at least one of the locations. I can state that honestly, and I can state that truthfully. With that being said, I would like you to explain the tank situation, and then we're going to go over what you and I discussed on it.
So site number 4 is a location where tanks are the closest. Down south, there's a tank company in the vicinity of one of the sites that has a patrol route that's around the other 2 sites, but it's kind of a dispersed area. Site number 4 in the north being on its own and co-located actually with a tank company. There's the presence of the tanks there is a lot more prevalent. In fact, there's a permanently constructed tank position, full defilade up and shoot defilade position to the immediate south of that site, where that tank occupies that spot, looking over the wadi into Barish. So on site number 4, on multiple occasions, the tank has been brought up to the northwest corner. And it can be heard on the 29th of May, when we were trying to move the crowd. One of the team leaders makes the decision to move the tank up to the northwest corner. You can hear it in the radio call. On another day, much later on, 8th of June, when I was also on site 4, the tank moved up into that northwest corner, and I was at the exit, standing right at the a couple of feet outside of the exit where I had a clear view, and the crowd was getting moved back. The one of the machine guns, as the tank was coming up, was shooting, and you can hear the bullets ricocheting off of the fence in front of me, very close. And when the tank came up into position, it parks. And when the Markava tank, it's a very big tank. And when he parked, at first it was still sitting high, and then he went into that sit mode, that lower hydraulic, which is usually they're preparing to potentially, not saying that he initially I thought that it was, but indicator that going down onto its level spot, that it's gonna shoot its main gun.
Right.
And the gun starts to swivel, and the gun turns right towards me, and I can hear, you get in the video, you can hear me, I'm like, hey, like, I'm here. And right at about that moment, one of the stun grenades goes off, and I catch a face full of tear gas, and I'm coughing, and I'm fall to the ground, and I'm moving out, and I'm behind the berm. Another individual that was on top of the berm saw the round fire, but that was the incident that the Markava tank that had pulled up had fired at the white vehicle. And again, my perception of it was that vehicle was people that were leaving. But as Matt had brought it to me, you're right. I didn't hear IDF communications on the radios in terms of what intelligence there was or what that potential threat could have been.
So this is a fair statement that, like, something that I always bring up and I always talk to the viewers about is intelligence ends up driving operations. You have one of the most surveilled places. There's videos that I know for a fact the IDF has released, and it was just something I spoke of earlier with some people from over there, that maybe it would do you guys some good to release some of the intel behind some of these strikes, because when people see an unarmed person walking down a road and a bomb falling on him, somebody like you and I can see it and we can go, oh, that person was probably planting an IED. Maybe they had just, fired upon troops, exited a building, they were maneuvering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You guys felt confident in this, so you ended up releasing it. If there's a UN investigation, you'll share the intel. But what that ends up doing is putting bad things out there. And the truth is again, it's war, and you're dealing with, terrorist organizations, and there is things. And I think one of the things that you had brought up when I had mentioned it was we were griping back and forth. And I said, do you have all of the intel that they had? Were you on the radio? And you said, no.
That's a great point.
No, I didn't.
No, it's a good point.
No, I didn't. And so you had brought up, okay, well, were they like spying? Were they, like gathering information on the site? These are all good questions, and I don't know. What I do know, though, is that there is documented evidence that I have seen thus far, that tanks have been operating in very near vicinity of these locations, and that other than that, I haven't seen that portion of the video yet. I haven't been able to review that. But I mean, it's plausible. I'll put it that way. It is plausible based on what I've seen.
Yeah. And
of course you would freeze right after
I want to mention something, a good point you just mentioned, because earlier today I was on Pierce Morgan and Jonathan Conricus, the IDF, former IDF spokesman. He was on the show, and we were having a discussion much like this, and he was, to your point, Pierce Morgan said almost the exact same thing to him, that because he kept saying like, well, this was done and that was done because we know things that you don't. And Pierce Morgan said, he's like, yeah, well, when you have information that we don't, and it looks a certain way, people are going to make assumptions, and people are going to, they're going to paint the picture how they want it. So maybe it would benefit the IDF and at times to share more information either after, to let people know what that was, instead of just assuming that people are just going to take your word for it. And Jonathan Conricus, actually, he said that today, where he's like, yes, I admit that the IDF should do a better job of explaining things after they happen, instead of just wiping away that no one deserves an explanation, that they have to do a better job of explaining these things to people that see it, and they think, well, that looks like this,
right?
But in reality, it may have been something entirely different, based on intelligence, based on things that we may not know. I took
a OCHA video from the UN yesterday, and I debunked the crap out of it. It's 100% a massive propaganda piece, where you have a reporter from, I want to say the date was July 31st, or maybe I think it was July 31st, that she ended up releasing the video. And it shows like a horde of Palestinians that are basically rushing towards their vehicles. And you do see one round splash, and then you hear gunshots behind it. And I timed them out by frames per second, and they were about half a second away, came out to be about 170 meters behind. Lady stated that they had just left an Israeli checkpoint. Therefore, the checkpoint had clear line of fire. She was complaining that the Israelis had held them up at the checkpoint for nearly 2 hours before they finally released them. And then as the video continues and the people come around them, you end up seeing on the screen, it says gunshots, as like the vehicles are surrounded, but what they called gunshots was actually people slapping the hood of the truck. Things like that. Instead of having Matt Tardio on the Speak the Truth podcast sit there and do it, instead of saying, we don't trust the UN. Well, state why, and provide legitimate breakdowns, evidence, and facts of things of that nature, right? She also ended up stating that they had no time to strap down the humanitarian aid down at the Kareem Shalom crossing, because they had they had no time to strap down the aid, and so they just ended up driving off with it. Well, over the last week, I did a deep dive into the UN's reports, ended up discovering that 92% of their food ends up getting stolen, that GHF is providing the vast majority of the food to the Palestinian population inside of Gaza. Further ended up figuring out from the UN's own report, the World Food Program, that published, I want to say it was July 25th, just a couple days before that video was released, that sometimes they are held up to 46 hours after the trucks are loaded. And so that statement doesn't hold any water. But what does make sense is that they wouldn't even bother strapping it down because they know the crap's just going to get taken off the truck anyways. I mean, it's just common sense. And yet they take it and they spin it in that direction. I could be wrong, but seems to be accurate assessment based on their own reporting. That's the point that I'm trying to make when it goes down to the IDF is you guys need to start providing some legit information. Like you need to get some people that know what the heck they're talking about to actually talk about these things. If, for example, these sites were explained the way in which you and I just did and talked about it in such a manner, the real issue, in my opinion, goes down to physical site security, which goes back down to the root of it, which now I'm going to ask you the next question. As, right, a easily, right, senior leader within the Green Beret community, having had just got out, I had stated previously, by the way, that you were hired on as an L&O. I didn't get a time to read through all the way through your contract, but it was JTOC operator, I believe is what they ended up stating it was. Fair assessment to say that your position was as an L&O. Is that correct? Or a liaison officer for you guys out there?
On my initial hire, like my first initial contract before I was promoted, yes, the liaison to the IDF in the JOC.
Now, something that you probably don't know, because just like you, I don't have all the time to watch the things you say, and you don't have all the times to watch the things I say. I've said before as well that if I was you in your position, I don't give a damn what my contract said. If I saw the situation that was on the ground, the way in which you and I both know it to be true, as far as the physical security is concerned, you bet your butt I would be speaking up, and I don't care whose Cheerios I'd pee in because I care about the people that are on the ground. Did that occur?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like I spoke up to the point to where, yeah, I on numerous occasions spoke up to the leadership that it was that these were issues that site security day one when we went on the leaders recon on the 24th, the first time any Americans had been to and seen the sites, actually physically on the sites. There were things that not only myself, but other seasoned veterans that were in team leader positions, mobile team leaders or static team leaders, that brought up some serious concerns from day one. The observation, the minimum standoff from the sites into areas that provided cover and concealment almost right up to the site. Just a lot of issues that we brought up, that we brought them up a lot over and over and over again to the UGS leadership in country, that things that needed to be addressed. And I don't know if it was the ability of the leadership to kind of grasp that, to understand that complexity, or if it was other reasons that we didn't incorporate changes. I have my own theory as to why we didn't, but I don't want to trash anybody.
Well, yeah, and that's something that you and I are going to continue to discuss offline.
Yeah.
As we continue to work our way through this precarious environment.
Yep.
However, what's done in the light, or what's done in the dark, will come to the light, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. It just is.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that are there, seasoned soldiers that had spent careers in the military. A lot of them, special operations, were on the ground and kind of saying the same thing, that there's a lot of risks here, a lot of gaps, a lot of tactical,
let me ask you a question,
operational things we got to fix. Yes.
Let me ask you a question. True or false statement, was a 71-year-old man on the ground hired?
True statement.
I want you guys to think about that for a second. That is not something that he told me. That's something that I knew. Right? We are not going to get into, because again, there's still men on the ground, the gross security concerns that both him, I, and every single person, to be perfectly clear, that I talked about has about those operations. And if those things had been taking place, him and I would not be having this. But it's not cut and dry, and it's not black and white. It's just not. You have a highly complex, rapidly evolving environment, the likes of which no military, to my knowledge, has ever faced before. And so there's a steep and rapid learning curve going into this. Okay, so that happened. Now it's time to get into, if you don't mind, some of the questions and stuff that we have. This
Of
one is
course.
more or less a statement. Joe Saunders stated, "So our takeaway is your interviews were edited and cherry picked for the most sensational items by mass media." Just saying.
A lot of them are, and I am learning now that is a tactic. And as Matt is providing me mentorship on this, is, certain platforms count, right? They matter. Yeah. So in a way they do. Both sides do.
Another one that came in, question from 2000 or more. Are you saying that Tucker Carlson edited parts out of your interview to make it look like you were saying the IDF did it on purpose?
I haven't watched the Tucker interview to see. I'll go watch it. I have not watched those interviews yet. A lot of the interviews that I've done, I haven't gone back and watched them in their entirety. I have seen some of like the little clips that people make, like the little
Short
clips.
Yep.
That I've seen, but I need to go and sit down and watch them in their entirety. I haven't watched them yet.
What was your assigned language, out of curiosity?
So when I came out of the Q course, my first group was first group. So I had Tagalog. Yeah.
That didn't do you a lot of good, but you want to explain, you want to explain your D-Lab score and why that matters?
Yeah. So when I finished the Q course, I wanted to go to, being having grown up in and being Hispanic and growing up speaking Spanish, I wanted to go to seventh group. When we took our D-Lab, my D-Lab score was actually really high. So they were like, well, you're not going to get Spanish because we're giving all the gringos that don't have a high D-Lab score, we're giving them Spanish.
The D-Lab is the D-Lab is the defense language aptitude battery test, if my memory serves me correctly.
That is correct. That is correct.
What ends up happening is they end up giving you a fictitious language that you get to end up trying to figure out how to speak it in a very long, boring test. And the idiots end up getting Spanish, and the smart people end up getting Mandarin. The quasi-intelligent get Russian, Tagalog, things of that nature. That's fair. Not to knock on seventh, but yeah. Right.
Well, but to be fair, I learned Tagalog, which is very similar to Spanish in a lot of ways. And then when I went to the Philippines, everybody spoke English. So
didn't even matter. Okay. So not an Arab speaker?
No.
Did you have an interpreter with you?
So on the sites, we were limited in one interpreter per site. We were also very dependent upon the local Palestinian workers that were on the sites. But though they could speak Arabic, they didn't speak English very well. So they could communicate one way, but not to the other. So in terms of having an interpreter, we only had one per site was what we had. And it was hard with one interpreter for thousands of people.
How was it that you were speaking back and forth with Amir?
So, I know some, some of the basic phrases in terms of, hello and shukran and we were when he came up and talked to us, there was a lot of what I would say the
old school
nonverbal communication. Because when he walked up to us, he was standing at a distance and he kind of put his hand out, and the gentleman and I, the contractor and I standing there, we didn't know if he was hurt or if he wanted water or if he wanted more food. So he had put his hand out and we just kind of beckoned him over, and without saying any words, he kissed our hands and then held it to his head, and there was no words being spoken then. And then when I put my hand on his shoulder to look at him and talk to him, I spoke in English to him, knowing that he probably wouldn't understand it, but it was really about the eye contact and about the looking at him and saying the words that the sentiment gets across. I think that there was, I don't think I know that the the majority, and again, I don't know all the contractors. I didn't really know any of them before we all came together and went. But the vast majority there wanted to do good and do the right thing and feed people, to help, to do good. And in this moment, it was really and the contractor and I that were standing there with him, and sharing this moment, it was important. And I think that, yeah, I didn't speak to him in Arabic, but just speaking to him in that, looking at him and saying, that we care about you, you're not forgotten. I think the sentiment was there in terms of understanding that, we weren't yelling at him. We weren't telling him something bad. I think he understood the sentiment of the connection. So we were communicating with just, basic, nonverbal and pointy talkie.
Okay. God, man, the amount of messages right now that are blowing up with people, one on YouTube wanting me to ask you questions, the other ones I'm getting down here. If I'm looking away and bringing it up, there's a lot of information that's out there. So I'm going back and forth. So I was giving, I might have to play it for a sec to bring it up. The quote is from a July 26th interview with the North Star. The source, is the North Star, and it says interview with Sean King, July 26, 2025. They were intentional acts carried out by soldiers and contractors who knew they were shooting into crowds of civilians. Response.
I said that?
Let me open the link. If it is, I'll end up putting it up on the screen. Let me see here. Let me see if there's an actual thing, because if it is, I'll play it. It does sound familiar, to be honest. I have to find it. Let me see if I can grab that clip. Give me one sec. Unfortunately, well, you know what I can do. I have WhatsApp on my computer, so I'll just open it up there. Yeah, I mean, if you want to clear the air on it, like I said, there's things like this where,
sure, I mean, so
if that is out there, yeah, go ahead.
I haven't done anything with Sean King. So if it was on Sean King, then it was a cut clip of another interview that was on, because I have not interviewed with Sean King.
Okay, this is what was sent to me, so I'm just gonna put it up on the screen and play it.
Yeah.
Give me one sec here. I gotta transfer it over.
Okay.
So give me just one brief sec. You're gonna see yourself for a second. I apologize for that. Let me know if you can hear what I'm about to be playing. All right. You should be able to. I'll go ahead and play this audio. I don't have this set up to do both, but everybody at home should be able to hear it, and so should you. And you can see that right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play what I was sent.
He retired and left, he says, when he saw American colleagues and the IDF killing civilians. The soldier is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, a Special Forces veteran of the U.S. Army's Green Berets. He's in Washington. I spoke to him from a spot just near the Gaza border.
I witnessed the Israeli Defense Forces shooting at the crowds of Palestinians. I witnessed the Israeli Defense Forces firing a main gun tank round from the Markava tank into a crowd of people, destroying a car of civilians that were simply driving away from the site. I witnessed mortar rounds being fired at the crowds of people to keep them controlled.
As a professional soldier with a very long career, what was your professional opinion of what was happening?
My professional opinion of how the sites were established was what I would describe as amateur. Inexperienced, untrained, no idea of how to conduct operations of this magnitude. That would be my most benign assessment. In my most frank assessment, I would say that they're criminal. In my entire career, have I never witnessed the level of brutality and use of indiscriminate and unnecessary force against a civilian population, an unarmed, starving population. I've never witnessed that in all of the places I've been deployed to war until I was in Gaza at the hands of the IDF and U.S. contractors.
Based on the knowledge you have, do you think that you were a witness then to war crimes? I think you're saying that very emphatically.
Without question, I witnessed war crimes. I witnessed war crimes being held by the Israeli Defense Forces, without a doubt, using artillery rounds, mortar rounds, firing tank rounds into unarmed civilians is a war crime.
People can resist hunger for a long time, but in the end their strength ebbs away and deaths can rise exponentially, and that is what seems to be happening now in Gaza. Israel insists its forces have not targeted civilians. Now we have eyewitness testimony to add to the considerable evidence that they've done so as a matter of routine. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Jerusalem.
So Jeremy Bowen, not Sean King that gave you that interview. Pretty sure everybody at home was able to hear that as well. And I left your face up there so they could see you reacting to it as it went instead of playing the clip. All right. Fair shake and assessment of your answers to those questions.
What I want to make clear about on the 29th of May, the individual that was on site that they were then shooting warning shots, or however you want to describe them, from the berm
pull that video
at the crowd. Yeah, to me that is absolutely unprofessional, unacceptable.
Yeah, and that's something you provided me.
If I was an SFODA
commander, let me back you up on that one right there. You provided me that unedited video, and in the previous videos that I had heard that were taking place, that were on the internet of that, I'm pretty sure I played it on this podcast. What I did not hear in any of them, which I think is the most key piece of evidence, and I'm damn near tempted to pull it up and play it right now, just to make sure it's clear what you just stated. You can hear somebody from within the site. Number one, you hear a belt-fed machine gun outside that's firing beforehand, a lot of it. Number two, you hear one of the contractors state, and it's faint, even on the unedited one that you provided me, it is faint in the background. So it could have been the constant uploads. It could have been people editing. Who the hell knows? But you can hear that contractor shout warning shots, followed by at least half a mag to almost a full mag of rounds that go out. Yeah. Somebody says, I think you got one. And then he cheers and says, woo, let's go, boys. Now, previously in an interview, I had Nate from Valhalla up here with me. And again, both him and I don't think he heard the warning shots portion of it either. And him and I had gone and we had stated that, I was like, look, bro, I'm not going to lie. I've cheered before like that, killing enemy combatants. And it's very clear in that when he states warning shots. You don't fire warning shots at enemy combatants. That's not what those are. I don't warn the enemy before I freaking kill them. And I want to make that perfectly clear. And I would agree with your assessment on that video. Does that statement apply to any of the other things that we talked about tonight?
Well, so I think that on, in intention and negligence are still, you can have a crime of negligence or a crime of intention. That's why we have different degrees of homicide.
100%.
And my point to the things that I'm saying is not that I am the adjudicator or the judge of these, but if I had a soldier and I issued him non-lethal munition to go into an area that's predominantly civilians that are unarmed, and I gave him no training on that piece of equipment whatsoever.
That's
none.
a problem.
That's a problem. And then in a situation, that soldier then lobs one of these stun grenades into a crowd that either severely injures or kills, however we want to call it. It's my assessment that she was dead because she wasn't breathing and she didn't have a pulse, but severely injures, whatever. Negligence is still something that should, that contractor that he's the one to blame or he's the one that's negligent. But I mean, we all make decisions. If I was given a munition, a non-lethal munition, and I wasn't trained on it, I wouldn't use it. I mean,
well, and so that's not even negligence on the soldier's perspective. I would call that dereliction of duty on a leadership perspective. Like failed to do their job to make sure the individual is properly trained, which that is something that we can get into later. And I made that statement for a reason, not you. So take my word of advice on that one, please. And that is something that we should get into later.
Okay. Yeah.
When it goes down to the other situations that we had talked about with basically having to herd people like cats with gunfire because of the environment it falls into, I look at that as I don't know. Because I just simply don't have all the facts. Like I said, it is an unprecedented environment. You know, like here in America, when you end up having things like that and it ends up getting taken up, you end up having case law, and nobody wants to have case law with their name attached to it, right? Because that's just a crap situation to be in. And I look at that and I go, you have, again, an unprecedented environment, one of the most densely, not the, that's a very common misconception, but one of the most densely populated places on the planet, with people that have been shoved due to active combat, with more enemy combatants shoved into one area than more people are genuinely used to. The only people that can compare that really is what's taking place over inside of Ukraine right now, honestly, when it goes down to combat experience with that amount of civilians in some of the locations over there, not all of them. But even over there, they have established front lines and people are wearing uniforms. For crying out loud, they even mark themselves with different colored tape to identify, right? This is something that's totally different. And then you also add on the humanitarian situation and say, how rapidly can we get this done, right? And so it's one of those things there's so many different moving pieces that goes into this. This is going to be one of those situations, I think, that is studied for a very long period of time to determine that. And there is going to be opinions on both sides of the fence on what that's going to be. And that's the honest to God's truth. I don't have all of the answers to that right now because I'm not privy to all of that information. But it's enough information for me to look at just from the outside perspective of going, what the hell happened? Why are these sites so low on security? That's the truth. That is a true statement.
And that is true. And again, I don't want to get into the numbers because we still got guys out there, but yes, that's a true statement. And when you think about it in terms of this environment, in the future will be, when we were young soldiers or young lieutenants and we were studying, Vietnam tactics when we went through SEER school or went through SUT and we were still doing, basic wood tactics in the woods. This is going to be something that people study in the future, because just imagine, if you will, the entire enclave of Gaza with about 2 million people in it, the majority of whom are crunched into this small central area, while you have an enemy that is still out there. The enemy is still present. Hamas is not militarily defeated. An enemy that's still present with tunnels that could pop up right behind your fighting position. They found tunnels out there all the time. There was one location where we were at where we'd been, it was right in front of the site for weeks, and they found out that was the exit of a tunnel, because we couldn't go out there. Like, we couldn't go out past the sites, and it was always odd, like, where did that person come from? And then the IDF were clearing out there and had found a tunnel. And so you're in an environment where,
and that's crazy, because the amount of engineers that were on the ground to set those places up is also insane, that nobody stumbled across that.
Yes, but it's there. You're in an environment where the enemy is still present. So imagine like being in Iraq 2006 counterinsurgency,
right,
where you have you have sectarian violence, you have a large population, you do have terrorists that are targeting Americans that can come from anywhere. Couple that with a very condensed area. Imagine if we just took all of Baghdad and put it in Sadr, all of Baghdad and put it in Sadr City, and then put tunnels, and then put an army, and then put American contractors that aren't working for the government that they come from. They're working for the government because we're not there under, this is not a U.S. government contract. This is an Israeli contract. So
Yep.
You've got these you got these Americans that are there under their laws underneath this contract that's with the host nation, with a military that's fighting a war. And at the same time, you're trying to distribute food to a population of 2 million, and it's the only functioning thing in town doing it. And you have to do all that while you're also trying to not get killed. So
yeah. Let's shift away from that for 1 second. Let's touch on something else. Like I said, one of the statements that I know to be not true, I'm not saying it's a lie, I'm just stating that statement that I know not to be not true, is that you were definitely at more than one site, right? That ended up getting put out by the attorneys, and that's backed up not only by photographic and video evidence, it's been geolocated, but also by personal testimony that I knew to be true before you and I spoke. So the next thing that I'm going to bring up is, you remember when we were talking and I said, do you have a silver star? And your response was?
No, I have a bronze star.
Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, you cut out. I asked you if you had a silver star and your response was?
No, I do not have a silver star. I have earned a bronze star for valor. I have earned an Army Commendation Medal for valor, and I have earned the Purple Heart.
And then I ended up bringing up, you said these texts were true. We're referring to, and I can put it up on the screen, the text that the GHF attorney ended up sharing. And those texts, go ahead, I'll let you.
So on the Breaking Points interview, when the interviewer had asked me if the text that I had sent, when the screen that you see at home with what's on there, I don't see that in their little studio. So when he was asking me about the text message and he mentioned the one about I could be your worst nightmare, the I can be your worst nightmare one, I did write. I wrote that one, and it was about a different event entirely from the actual contract. It had to do with a different instance. That interviewer was showing all of the stuff that GHF had provided, and I haven't even gone through all of that yet. I haven't really been following it. So, when I said yes, the text is mine, I was referring to the one that he asked me about, the "I'll be your worst nightmare" text that I had sent to the COO Nathan Potter.
So I will say that I believe that there is the potential right now that I have received some things that may be either A, misleading, or B, false. I don't know yet. I don't have enough information to make clear on that. But what I do know is that there was at least one untrue statement that was made by the attorney that day. And when we get to that, then it makes me start questioning some other things. And there's other things that you and I have not discussed on here that we have agreed that right now we are not discussing. That, in my opinion, in a court of law could be considered exculpatory evidence. If you don't know what that term is, you might want to go look it up. And that's what I'm going to say about that at this time being. And that goes towards the some of the information that they possibly provided. And that exculpatory evidence comes in benefit of you, not towards GHF in regards to those. And that is as far as I'm willing to go in that right now. But I'm allowing you the opportunity to be able to state, your piece on that. Have you ever claimed to have had a silver star?
No.
Okay. Cancer.
I have, and I have had it. And
will you please explain that to the people?
So when I left the military, I I had a tumor in my right shoulder. I mean, you can say I'll gladly show everybody the scar from where it was, taken out of my shoulder, and it was growing on my lymph node, and I had to undergo treatment for it as I was getting out of the military. It was one of the conditions that was added to my conditions in retirement that kind of kept me in the Army a little bit longer to get all that treatment done before I got out. So yes, and it's something that I have to still take care of and deal with today. So that the context of that conversation, the reason it concerns me is because the person that I had the conversation with, that information was kind of put into this text to paint me a certain way, was a pretty personal conversation that I had with that individual. And I feel like it was a real dick move, to be honest. Feel kind of betrayed by it because, we shared things about family, we shared personal things, we had a conversation, and then to see that kind of like turned like that in a way it's pretty shady.
Okay. So, Smokey Sergeant actually asked another question, and I'm going to get to your guys' questions here in a little bit. I promise you. He asked another question, which is stage 4 cancer makes someone non-deployable, makes one too much a medical liability. He would have never been hired per contract and sent to Gaza. So before you even respond, I'm going to make the statement that out of people that I've talked to, that the hiring process was not up to par. In one instance, there was a gentleman that I spoke with that got basically sent a text, and I will tell you, even during the Afghan withdrawal, that over signal message, I got told that if I had an active passport, I'd get my butt to the East Coast in like 2 or 3 days, that I'd get paid. I can't remember. It was a ridiculous amount of money to be gone for like 2 months, like $2,000, $5,000 a day, whatever the hell it was. It was a lot. I'd have to go back and find it. But like, that was it. Like, hey bro, you got an honorable discharge, 18 series qualifier, blah, 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 blah. Get over here. You're hired. A gentleman that I talked to had stated that, and this is one of the contractors, had stated that he had received a similar message from a friend, that he had filled out a statement, had provided his resume and had provided references, that he got a call from a recruiter, and that recruiter did not bother checking his references. They had a 90-second conversation, and at the end of that 90-second conversation, the guy was blown away and said, great, I think maybe we need to put you in a leadership role or something, right? Basically, nothing was verified, and he was just instant hired 90 seconds after making a statement. There was no clarifying questions, no anything. And so now I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond if that's in line with your process.
My interview.
Uh-oh, he froze again.
Documentation. Am I unfrozen now?
Yep.
Okay, so my interview with UG Solutions was about 5 minutes. Didn't ask me anything very critical. It was pretty cursory questions. They didn't ask for my DD-214. They didn't ask for my, a copy of my old ORB, a resume, nothing. Nothing was validated or verified of who I was or what I had done or what my background was. And
so,
I mean, to remind everybody, a 71-year-old man showed up.
Right. That's to the best of my knowledge, but I'm also questioning a lot of it at this point, to be honest with you. The other portion, ORB, will you explain that to people?
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, if they wanted an old officer record brief. So the Army has since switched away from that. They have, like, under this new integrated pay and personnel system, they have the talent management profile. But back in the day, they still had the officer record brief or the enlisted record brief, your ORB or ERB, that basically is the one sheet that just says everything about you: deployments, assignments, MOS, branch, schools, awards, decorations. It's like your military life on one sheet of paper. Your DD-214, of course, everybody knows that's the document you get upon your exit from the service that is an official record of your military service. They didn't ask for any of those things. DD-214, officer record brief, resume.
OER?
No, OERs or NCOERs, nothing.
Okay, so that would be his evaluation report annually that ends up getting turned in, filled out by superiors, and checks and balances and all that other stuff. Quantifiable statements that say whether or not you're a turd and you end up getting ranked, and also it's a pain in the ass, to be perfectly honest. But none of that. Couple minutes.
No, there was no validation, verification of who we were,
yeah, that is a whole other thing. And that is a common theme that I've heard. And so when people are stating whether or not there's no way you'd get hired with that, and we are thinking of that from the typical contractor route that you look at, to where, like, triple canopy, for example, right? Those dudes dig through all of your shit. Like, they go ham. That doesn't seem to be the case on this one. As far as you having it while in service, you said it was discovered towards the end of it, that ended up going in there. So,
but I mean, the other thing is that people have this perception that, if you have cancer, you have this, that you look like this thing. All things are different in terms of how people. I felt good. Now, if they gave me a full medical screening and I went and got into physical, would they probably have let me? Probably not. But as an SF guy, we all do dumb shit. I mean, I walked around in Ranger School with a broken foot. I mean,
yeah.
So I went. Should I have gone? Probably not. But I felt good. I was feeling healthy. I was eating my Wheaties and drinking my orange juice. I felt good. So
right.
I went, and it's just it's one of those things that things like that don't necessarily put you down and make you decrepit. I mean, yeah, right. Had I been on a military deployment, you're damn right I wouldn't be able to go. And if they done a medical assessment, said go down to the local Department of Transportation and get a CDL physical, so at least we can know that you're not on the edge of death. There was nothing, zero. So I felt good.
Did you ever state that in an interview?
Medical conditions? No, because they didn't. Okay. They asked us. There were no medical questions in terms of, are you undergoing certain medical treatments, or are you going to go this, and are you undergoing that? They didn't ask anything. And I mean, I was felt good. Everything was under control.
Hold on. I got sent something that I can't. Hold on. It's a 9-minute interview on Tucker. Hold on. I need to ask this because, again, you've struck a lot of people's chords in media, and I want to clarify this because I haven't seen you personally state I had stage 4 cancer. That came out, to the best of my knowledge, and the only place it's been stated was, or not even stated, shown, was on an alleged signal message. I believe it was an alleged signal message, if I remember right. That or a text for the stage 4 cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, that was not a text. That was that signal message that has other components of it that are things that, again, that I did not say. And in the conversation I had with the person that wrote that again, I'd love to see, everything was redacted. Everything, all the names were taken out that in terms of what I could see. But yeah, I didn't say to them, nor did I say to the person that I was talking to, that I believe is the source of that I had stage 4 cancer. What I said is that I had recovered from having initial cancer. And the reason I had to have such aggressive treatment is because when you have cancer that's growing on or next to a lymph node and you don't treat it aggressively with surgery, I had surgery and then chemotherapy, And if you don't treat it aggressively, lymphoma and the cancer in the lymph node can go into stage 4 and systemic pretty darn quick. So the conversation that I had with that guy, I never said that I have stage 4 cancer. We had a conversation one night about my health conditions, about his personal thing. We were having a conversation about family and personal things, and he used that against me in a way that is, like I said, it's kind of jacked up.
I got sent a 10-minute long clip from Tucker that said, but he said he had stage 4 metastatic cancer. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing medical terms. Metastatic cancer, some crap like that. I asked for a timestamp because I'm not going to dig through a 10-minute video, and I'm not going to play a 10-minute video. And it looks like it was from Tucker Carlson. So I asked for a timestamp on it, and if it does, I'll take it. I'll play it. Because but either way, that's your current statement on that, and where that came from. Yeah. So again, if I get that timestamp, I know you're listening to me. No, the video is not about cancer. Okay, so there it is. But that statement was provided via GHF that alleged to be yours, right? Same thing with like the Silver Star.
All of that though was in the same. That wasn't a series of different messages. That stuff was all in the same little blurb of one message.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go through some of these comments. 2000 Lamar says, when you said they were committing war crimes, your tone suggests it was intentional and not negligence. I've never seen anyone speak to a media outlet, make war crimes accusations, then say negligence. So to be clear, clarify this crap, because I have also done live interviews and punched myself in the face, especially after seeing some edits. War crime accusation that you've publicly made, at least that I know of on this, that I might even view it that way if I had as much information as you on the ground, would be the warning shots video. Whoever pulled the trigger on that. On
the 29th of May, when the guy is actively shooting and then cheers about it and everything. Yeah, right. I would, if as a United States Army officer, I would have court-martialed that man.
Right.
Because you don't shoot at, we're not talking about combatants. We're not talking about shooting at the Taliban in a firefight and cheering about it. We're talking about unarmed women and children whose back was turned to us walking away.
Right. So, and I don't know if
I would say that that's a war crime.
I don't know if that's a fair statement to state that person that he was shooting at was unarmed, turning, walking away, but he did say warning shots beforehand. From your POV, I think you were inside of the berm. So it's not. You
saw the other people that were standing in front of me. One guy had his hands in his pockets.
Yes,
another guy was looking the other way. Didn't seem to be much of a
I think
threat,
it's fair to say that they were unarmed, right? So you don't shout warning shot for unarmed people. You just shoot them, right? So there's that. And even then, that's a hell of a lot to mag dump like that. And that is a whole other side that I think you and I.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? It's not like he fired 1 or 2 shots.
That was basically a mag dump, and we can get it. And what I want to do on that one, because it is a large accusation, talk about that, because there's other aspects that also go into that, such as negligence or such as dereliction of duty, and several other things that I am aware of and that I don't even know if I've talked to you about, that we can get into in the future, right? Because there's other portions of that which I think go into the security side of the house, which we should not be discussing live at all. And it is one of those sensitive situations that needs to be handled appropriately, because I think there is also more that goes into that as well. Especially, well, again, even men's experience, in my opinion, is walking a fine line when it goes to a security situation with people on the ground. And so I don't even want to get into that, to be perfectly honest. So I'd like to, for the sake of this show, to make sure we can keep having it, move on to a different portion. Are you saying that you witnessed a war crime with the IDF? Just clear question.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, so a couple reasons that I'll say that is that and again, war, like in terms of war crimes, I mean war crimes as described and prescribed in international humanitarian law, the IHL, codified within the Geneva Convention protocols of the IHL that dictate those things. So whoever built those sites, it wasn't UGS, it wasn't SRS, it wasn't Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Whoever built those sites and deliberately built them in an active and ongoing area of combat, a contact zone, a combat zone, that is a war crime. The Geneva Convention protocols specifically state that you cannot build or have sites intended for civilian use, water, food, clothing, shelter, medicine, that are intentionally built in areas of active combat that then draw the population through those combat areas to reach those services. So whoever built those sites, yeah, it's a war crime.
So now here's the pushback. You ready?
Yeah.
This is actually, I think, more getting into a debate on it when I said that we're entering into uncharted territories and unprecedented instances. Would you describe anywhere inside of Gaza that is not a combat zone?
Absolutely.
Where?
And again, what I want to say is about people that haven't been there is you haven't been there. Yes, there are places within Gaza. You have along the entire western coast, you have the coastal corridor, cleared out area, cleared, secured. Along the entire eastern border, you have the Burma Road and the Berber corridor, cleared out, completely cleared.
Is that like actually, is that corridor locked down? Because now I'm going to ask you some questions. So that corridor is locked down, like no Hamas is getting in or out of there. But civilians, civilians are getting over there to the beach.
Putting the distribution sites, you could have potentially put one just 200 meters a little bit north and put it in the Morag corridor. That is a secured area. You could have put it on the coastal corridor away from all of the combat with back to the sea. What a better security than having one of your flanks be the ocean.
Yeah, and then you could put the other one as like the freaking Philadelphia corridor, having it shoved all the way down there.
Yeah, you could have put it down on the Philadelphia corridor that's completely locked down and secured. So, and there's
also a lot of tunnels down there too that are going into Egypt.
But down
that they haven't been able to find.
Down over by where the Philadelphia corridor is, that place is locked down. There's an IDF checkpoint like every 20 meters.
Sure.
Like that place is locked down, and it's accessible from Karim Shalom, where the aid comes from, to where you have a much
it's actually
more
a short drive.
Yeah, it's a very
it's
short.
It's actually a straight shot. Yeah, it's actually a straight shot. Is that feasible to get that many people down there? As far as that goes, do you think that would have been a factor?
We have to.
Actually, the more that I think about it,
aren't too far off of the Philadelphia.
The more that I think about it,
anyway.
it's 4 miles. I think it's like 4 miles from the center of Khan Yunis to the center of Rafah. I think it's something like 4 miles. It's really not that far.
We're not talking great distances. I mean,
it's really not that far.
The entire width of Gaza, from the narrow end to the far, we're talking only 6 kilometers.
Did they pick open spaces to place these things?
Well,
because now,
I don't know how the spaces were before they bulldozed them, but I know that before the sites were picked and before the sites were built, Operations Gideon's Chariots was already ongoing. There was already an active.
Yeah, they were pushing like mostly up in the north at the start of that, because I'm going to be honest with you, the rumors that construction and stuff started taking place, and I want to say it was like April, if I remember right, maybe March, but April sometime is when I really actually remember and trying to analyze and see what was going on. Part of me wonders.
It was in April, because in March,
April,
we were still working the Netzarim checkpoint 4.
Oh, right. Correct. Yep.
From January through March. So the phase 2 SDS piece didn't start coming into play until April.
So I bring that up because we have April, and I'm wondering when they gave the green light for it. I know that there was issues monetarily and things like that were going into it. And so I'm wondering, again, I don't have the information, so I don't get that right. I just don't. I'm wondering when they were given the green light and the time frame that they were given and the manpower that was assessed to it, which then goes back down into what we were talking about earlier, which is it wasn't necessarily a 70% violently executed plan. And I'm not saying violence isn't shooting and killing people. I'm just saying making it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very clear, like they didn't even get proper outer security established on these distro sites, as far as I'm concerned. And so, and having multiple of them being constructed at the same time, you have logistics operations. Then you also have construction that's taking place. Then you also have Israeli Defense Forces, not only inside of Gaza, you have them securing the northern border against Hezbollah, and they were still, having issues with them up there. We had situation up over inside of Syria, obviously Iran, as you're very well aware of, and all of those other things. So I'd be actually curious to see like balance of manpower and how all of that went into it, just honestly, before I'd be comfortable making that statement, and see like troops actually available, what was actually tasked, the amount that they had on rotation, all of that crap, before I could honestly make that assessment, plus know exactly who the hell it was that built them. Right. And how that was actually
and that's
out.
the other thing too, right? There's a lot of questions out there to say, so if I was the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and I had the humanitarian assistance mission pinned on me, the roses pinned on me, well, I'm definitely going to go in there with leadership, and I'm going to have a clear understanding on where these sites are going to be, how they're going to be reached, what the process they're like. This is, I don't like, people think that I'm just like I'm bashing on the men on the ground. I'm not. We went and ate the shit sandwich that we were served.
Right.
This is a leadership failure from the very top. And the reason I say that is because imagine, if you will, if I was a mechanized infantry company commander and I've been tasked to secure a sector, and I build my engagement area, my fires, my indirect fires, my direct fires, my Gustavs, all my fire systems. I have my engagement area where I'm going to kill the enemy. And then I decide to put a humanitarian aid distribution site right in the middle of it. That's a war crime. Like, I don't know how to explain that any clearer, that when you establish a site, secure distribution sites weren't set up as military sites that we were also going to service civilians. They were established specifically for the purpose of servicing a civilian population. There's a distinction.
Right. So another question that comes to mind as I think about that and I look at this, and this is a generalized discussion.
Yeah.
Hostages still exist over there, and we know for a fact they're in tunnels. And I also look at this and I say, like, as we just discussed, that like southwestern corridor where you have the Philadelphia corridor and then you have the Med off to the side. So you've got two flanks that are pretty much locked down. That makes life pretty easy, right? But you're also backed into a wall, which also kind of sucks. But as I go into that, tunnels, we know for a fact there's hostages. They're still down in those tunnels. And like you said, you guys were operating on that site for a very long period of time and didn't even identify it. One of their main objectives, one of their main goals, recovering those hostages. And I've got a bunch of different thoughts and opinions on that, because the way I've seen like the war prosecuted, again, covering extensively from the beginning, stuff that you and I promise you likely never done. I know cordon and searching areas, cordon and clearing areas and things like that. I never warned anybody before I went in, ever. Wasn't something I did. Definitely didn't allow anybody in or out. Sometimes we'd see people that would go out and they'd sit outside some of these areas and just kind of wait for the shooting to start. You know what I mean? Obviously we didn't engage those people. But that brings to mind the question of whether or not there would have been tunnels down in that area, or they had intelligence that suggested that they were in that area. And if they had plowed those areas down and plowed the routes and stuff like that, if they had the possibility of burying their own hostages alive at the same time. There was, and the reason I state that is because somebody that's on this channel as a follower that I had on before, member of the IDF, that was operating down inside Rafah on the initial push and initial clearance, had actually been inside one particular building where an American got killed. And they had been in that building, had searched that building. The building had later been kind of like beat up quite a bit, blown up in the battle. And this person was blown away when the bodies were actually recovered from in there, because they had stood directly inside of that location. And again, the intel that was coming out from the beginning was that Rafah was the one place where most likely they were being kept. It's a possibility, in my opinion. And I honestly, I'd have to look really deep into international law and discover how that would be treated. I don't know. I mean, I've long said that, like, and this to me is, I've just reached a moral dilemma in my brain. I've long said that if I was one of those hostages, I'd rather be put out of my damn misery, truthfully. I would be okay with a bomb falling on my head so I wasn't getting the shit beat out of me on a daily basis, starved and all that other crap that they've gone through. I don't know if you've seen it, like the scars and stuff like that on when they get out, but it is pretty clear that they've been tortured extensively.
Absolutely.
And even in the last video, the guy looks like he hadn't seen the light of day in forever. But yeah, I mean, would I rather just be, oh, okay, well, at least it's going to end at some point. And I don't say that from like a cold, mean perspective. But in my opinion, the more violence that's used up front in war, my experience, overwhelming violence up front against your enemy ends up causing less damage in the long run. That's my experience. You probably have a different one, and that's my opinion on it.
I would agree with that.
So
the difference in the wars that we have fought and the difference of what's going on in Gaza now is that it's been going on for quite a long time now.
Creeping up on 2 years.
My assessment, launch a military campaign.
Hold on. You cut out at my assessment, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So my assessment is that, does Hamas still have the capability to run up underneath a Merkava tank and slap a sticky bomb and blow the thing up?
It's a fact. Yeah.
So, absolutely. But as a military fighting force, do they have the ability to constitute militarily as they had? No. Now, I'm not saying that you take pressure off, but what I'm saying is that as we learned, like as Americans, we have learned from our experience in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and what we're learning now in Syria as it continues to drive on. I was in Syria when the president said we're leaving, and we withdrew, and now we're back there again. There comes a point to where a military solution, bombs and bullets, does not achieve the end state that you want. I'm pro Israel. Like, Israel is one of our strongest allies. I don't want to see Israel get dragged into the quagmire of what we dealt with in Afghanistan and left, because it.
Do you think yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The way that it's being fought now is that there's a point and there is a balance. And yes, war, it is. I mean, it is unforgiving. Yes, it is sad. It is sad that someone, a Hamas terrorist, may come out with a child and put a child between you and them and shoot at you, and you're in a dilemma of how you eliminate that threat. Yes, it is not fair, and it is a dilemma, and it is ugly, and it is disgusting. But there are certain rules and principles that you don't just throw out the window to say, well, there's nowhere else to put them, and this war is nasty, so let's just go ahead and put these distribution centers in the middle of combat areas where the entire population has to traverse back and forth through active combat. Well, war's hell.
Well, and I mean, this brings me up to, were those sites picked strategically for knowing that the future operations were upcoming and what they were looking at dealing with? For example, the one that's right on the outside of Khan Yunis, that we were talking about earlier, and knowing that you do have Gideon's Cherry coming, like all of that stuff, and that they're going to end up pushing, they're going to end up clearing more than likely. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, personally, I think that there is, and this is just me speaking honestly, I think that there is an issue when it goes down to population control, not having a plan. But I also think that some of this crap doesn't fall solely on Israel's shoulders when we look at this. I don't think so either. I do think that nations such as Egypt, number one, have a major problem that nobody has brought up and needs to step up. Sinai Peninsula isn't exactly the most populated place on earth, and there's more than enough open space. I don't know why the hell Egypt hasn't been pressed. To me, it would make sense to open that up, get the UN down on the border, get actual peacekeepers down there to properly screen the people, and until you determine whether or not, yes, they are Hamas or no, they're not, to move them into a camp over inside like the Sinai until you figure that out. That was also Egypt's problem after 1948, when they decided to take that problem over into Gaza. And then they got their butts kicked out of there in 1967 and refused to take it back. It's my take on it. People can have whatever take that they want, right? Also got to look at, in my opinion, like an education issue that's taking place inside there. Like there's so many dynamics to this that I think are so unique to this location that people really gotta, I mean, I could read the same thing twice and come up with a different opinion on it, you know, when it comes down to over there. One thing's for certain though, Israel is entitled to control their borders, right?
Absolutely.
Like they are entitled to control their borders, what flows in and out, but also at the same time, what you speak of applies. And I think that this falls into one of those areas of case law, right? That goes like extreme international case law that's going to end up getting made. And unfortunately, when I see things that are coming out from the UN as well, and this is my issue, when I see videos like I described the other day that I debunked from OCHA, that's clear like propaganda piece, right? In my opinion, I'll show it to you later. But a clear propaganda piece that ended up getting thrown out by OCHA. It's one of those things that I am not 100% on the fence on until I get more information. Like I personally am not prepared to make that statement. You may be, right? I've already walked back, 2 statements, 3 maybe, right? In this conversation that I've previously stated, but I need information is the thing. I need a hell of a lot of information. And again, I look at this as an unprecedented situation. I look at experience between Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, wherever, Ukraine. None of that mattered for what they're dealing with on the ground. Question, do you think politics took role into where those sites are located? Because of the things that we stated with the hostages? Because I know that in our wars, politics plays a huge role. And it kind of pissed me off, to be perfectly honest.
No, I think that politics has played a role in the humanitarian aid port where the location of the sites are. Absolutely. And my position on all this and everything I've said in all my interviews that I try to always end with is that the world needs to do more. The international community. It's not all on Israel. It's not all on the United States. The international community needs to step up.
That is exactly what I after digging into the World Food Program and the UN. Number one, it is well documented that UNRWA ended up getting, in my opinion, I feel confident making this statement that Hamas had infiltrated UNRWA and it was a corrupt organization that the UN, for whatever reason, refuses to hold themselves accountable for that. I F up, I make mistakes. I'm willing to come on live with you and state I made a mistake. That is what men do. UNRWA very clearly was a corrupt organization, and because that corruption was allowed to exist, that ended up forcing this into the current environment we're at. You and I are big boys, and so we also look at this from the big boy perspective, and we say, okay, that may very well be, but it's also our responsibility in the meantime. We're going to take that, and we're going to shoulder that, and we're going to figure this shit out. At the same time, the World Food Program, for example, is not being correctly held accountable. As I just stated on that, you've got 92% of their HA that doesn't make it to the destination. Why hasn't the WFP been pushing to have peacekeepers? Why haven't they been allowing armed escorts to make sure that gets to where it needs to go? Why aren't they allowing these things to happen in order to improve that situation, right? Why are we seeing all of this crap? Why am I seeing like literally a double tongue coming out of them to where they state they've got held up, up to 90 or 46 hours, but then we've got the UN stating again that they don't even have time to strap everything down. Why are they stating that it's Israel's fault because this food's not making it in, and then we end up getting the information that there is in fact food that's stacked up on the other side of Kareem Shalom, and there's likely another stack of food that's already been cleared on the other side. Just got airdrops. I watched a Palestinian video of an airdrop, and I wish I knew what country dropped it, because the guys on the ground ended up like documenting that they got moldy bread dropped from the sky. So now we have other nations that really don't give a shit that are just checking the block on what they're dropping in there. Like there are so many things that we end up putting into this that when you end up putting it together, if just blaming Israel for this situation, you are blinding yourself. You're a retard. If you just sit there and you go, this 100% is Israel's fault. Not to mention, I can sit there and I can say, you know what? Palestinian people, you also voted them into power. Hamas, I'm speaking of. Palestinian people, 97% of them in a survey by the Palestinian Center for Policy Survey Research Development also said that after seeing the videos of October 7th, that no atrocities were committed. That's asinine to me. That's a Palestinian frickin' research center interviewing Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza that don't think atrocities were committed. We've got videos of people cheering on as bodies are being dragged through the street, and not just a couple, but like an entire city, wall to wall, street to street, lined with people. So part of me also looks at it and goes, some of these people need to sleep in the bed in which they made, right? Videos of kids inside UNRWA schools talking about like praising Hitler, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? I pulled a video out of the West Bank last year, and it had old school red Nazi poster with a white circle and a swastika in the middle as people were complaining about Merkava tanks that were rolling into town over inside of Jenin. All sorts of shit like this that I end up seeing, and I say, what the hell is going on? And all of those are factors that go into this being an extremely precarious environment, like the likes of which I don't think anybody's ever seen. I'll tell you, I've been into some like very unique remote locations over inside of Afghanistan that really did remind me of what's taking place there, where they're just isolated in the middle of frickin' nowhere. And that's what they've been taught since the dawn of time. And that is what they know. I don't give a shit what you tell them. I don't care what you show them. They are never going to change their ways. France, for example. France, I don't know if you're aware of this, France started taking in refugees from Gaza, and they just shut their gates down the other day and closed them off because of a terror attack by a Palestinian.
Wow.
So there's a reason these other Arab nations aren't taking them in, or these predominantly Muslim nations aren't taking them in. France opened it up. They made a mistake. Australia opened up their gates. I think they made... I don't know if now I need to look into Australia because I know they took some in, and I don't know if they had a number, and the same thing ended up happening over there. I know that Israel has pulled some out and provided medical treatment to them. I know that they have put them in hospitals, like not put them in hospitals, but literally provided medical aid to people that needed it and got them out of there. And so I look at all this shit and I'm like, how much can one organization take? And if the world is going to whine and complain about it, I look at this from a man's point of view, where if I'm walking past a woman getting raped on the street as a man, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to kick that dude's teeth in, right? If I apply that on a greater scale and I say on a world stage, if the world is going to whine and complain about this, particularly the UN, why isn't the UN going in there and helping? Why isn't, like why? How has this not been done? And I'm telling you this as a man that from the very beginning of the war, as Israel was rolling in and going and literally pushing down the coastline north to south and east to west, and they got around the Shifa hospital, stating publicly on live statements before frickin' I think 2024 even hit, saying that they need to establish a humanitarian aid corridor long before anybody else talked about it, because this is going to turn into a flipping problem. And the UN needs to get their asses in there and lock it down. And it has yet to be done. And so at what point do we also look at this and say, you know what, UN, you're also negligent?
Oh, there's negligence and fault and blame to go around. And I think that, again, this is if the international community would come together with the resources and the accountability to include the United States into the UN process with the right resources and the right oversight and the right accountability, then there's potential there. I personally think that a private mechanism, in this case, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it does not have the capacity. We wouldn't be able to, whoever the client was wouldn't be able to afford a contract of that magnitude to pay for profit for a contract to achieve the
that's
scale.
a good question. How much have they been getting paid? Because I know for damn sure the $30 million that they publicly stated doesn't cover it. That's a drop in the bucket. And I also, and they haven't been open about it. And I found metadata that shows that they ended up getting paid on September 30th of last year. Mm-hmm. Now, the big question is how much money has actually gone in there, and where's it gone from, and where's it coming, all this other crap. And I think I found the paper trail that leads to it. But at the end of the day, it's a drop in a bucket of what actually needs to be done. And when you have people that are providing, and this is the hardest part of this damn conversation, is GHF is doing the heavy lifting inside Gaza, putting food in the hands of people. Hands down, bar none, the stats speak for themselves, right? Published stats speak for themselves. The men that you worked with, including yourself, you guys have provided more food than the World Food Program. Did you know that?
Oh, I know. the people on the ground that are working their butt off every day and making this happen with the resources that they have, absolutely.
It's
every
a damn
meal
miracle.
matters.
It's a dang miracle that they pulled it off, to be perfectly clear.
From the scale, though, of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation saying that this is how much we're going to do. Bisect that from what's actually being done, the work that's actually being done by the guys on the ground every single day. Yes, absolutely. It's incredible.
It's a miracle that they are able to pull off what they did.
The amount that was stated to say from Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, we're going to come in and we're going to equal the input of the United Nations, and we're going to meet half of the United Nations volume within the first 45 days, and then by the 90 days, we're going to have equal to or more than the volume of the UN going in. Well, we're nowhere near that. That's not on the men on the ground that are doing the work every day. That's on the leadership at the level that said that they could do something that they couldn't.
Okay.
And to me, I asked that question, why? It's kind of like, remember back in the days of the military contracting with, you could go with like, you want quality, so you're willing to pay for more.
Mm-hmm.
Some contracts were like lowest cost, like lowest bidder, lowest cost, best value, right? So in a lowest cost, best value, you're telling Uncle Sam, I can do this cheaper than my competitor. I can do it cheaper than my competitor. And Uncle Sam says, yes, we're going with you. And then when it comes time to perform that contract, you can't perform the contract because you can't do what you said you were going to do. So though your contractors may be working their ass off, you as the contract holder put yourself in a situation you can't do it. So the guys on the ground underneath UG Solutions and Safe Reach Solutions that are grinding their butts off every day, and I was there with them, and what they're doing is a miracle. It's at the top in saying that we, GHF, that we could achieve this certain amount of magnitude, because now the reason that bothers me as an American is because the throughput that's not going in and the decrease in the food that's going in, because by volume, even if just 5% of what was going in from the UN, whether it was getting taken or not, just 5% of what the UN was putting in is 28% more than what GHF has put in. And that's not meant to insult the capability of the guys on the ground doing it. That's just a fact based on capacity and volume that the GHF can achieve.
The last figures that I saw, like the UN going in, I think it was the food that the UN had to go in. I want to say it was like over 2 million meals a month, and GHF was like 1.3. And I think those stats might be a little off. It was the amount of food that they had that in the last, I think since May, I want to say I read the numbers since the end of May.
We can do a whole episode one day of breaking down.
Sure, I've got the numbers.
I did this to where,
so did
well, no, because there's a difference between.
Well, so here's the problem. Yeah. The World Food Program ends up, or I'm sorry, not the World Food Program. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation ends up reporting their stats and numbers of meals delivered. World Food and the World Food Program ends up putting it in by kilogram. And so
that's right.
I ended up breaking this down by 0.5 kilogram per meal. And I don't know what the GHF's meals weigh to even compare the dang shit. You know what I mean? And so
we got to have the same metric,
right? You got to use the same metric to be fair, which is why I ended up giving 0.5 kilo or about 1 pound a meal. Sounds about right. And that's a small meal. You know, it's not a big meal. It's a small meal. I think that's fair. Maybe it's a big meal. I don't. Hell, man. I don't know, because then you also have children. You also have children, and you have adults, and you have teenagers, and so there's a difference and all that needs balanced out. And so maybe that 0.5 pound food actually steps up, because you could drop it down to, or not 0.5 pound, but 0.5 kilo. You could drop it down to 0.3 because you have more kids than you have adults, and so those might go even further. But that was just beer math, being able to take it and break it down on a simple metric across the board, because I need to know what GHF's meals weigh in order to compute that. Do you have that number that we could actually break that down?
Well, no, I'll break it out for you here, where you don't have to do it by weight. Let's just talk about let's just talk about calories, the things that a human being needs to eat, right?
Okay.
Or needs energy, right? So one GHF box, one box feeds 5 people, 3 meals a day for 3.5 days.
Okay.
52.5 meals in one box.
Okay.
There are 42 boxes per pallet. There are 40 pallets per truck. So with every truck delivered, you've got like 25,200 meals, something along there. But when you take a GHF box, a Gaza Humanitarian Foundation box, and you open that thing up, because I've done this. I went to the port of Ashdod where all the aid comes in, and it comes in these giant bulk. And what makes it different between what goes into a World Food Program box or what goes into a GHF box isn't the size of the box or whose it belongs to. It's the sticker they slap on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the difference between you just take a same generic thing, you slap a different sticker on it.
Right.
52.5 meals in a GHF box because of the size of the GHF box. All the different organizations have a different size box. But if I were to take a GHF box and open it up and take each item out and count the calories that are totally in that box entirely, not the pre-cooked caloric intake. You look at the nutrition fact and it says post-cooking. After you cook it, here's what's in it. And I add all that up and I divide it by that 52.5 because that's how many meals are per a box. That's 200 calories per meal.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, that's not very many calories at all.
No.
That's actually really freaking low.
If in a day of meals.
So that's almost like skewing the numbers. Like what you're stating then is they're skewing numbers as well.
Well, it depends, numbers. People use numbers and people lie, right? So numbers don't lie, people do. So
that's a fact though. 200 calories is not enough to sustain a meal. Like that's not a meal.
But then when you further break it down, the 107 million meals delivered to date is very impressive. I mean, I used to track those. That was my job every day. Part of my fit every day was tracking those numbers. And I was comparing it to like, oh, wow, in one day, we did 1 day of the Berlin airdrop. We're awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
107 million meals over the last 77 days of distribution. When you break that down by meals per day, out of the last 77 days, we've only provided 17 days of food.
Okay. So I've got to, I honestly, I can't refute your statement on calories because I haven't seen a caloric intake form per box.
I have sat there and I have taken each item out and I have sat there and I have done it myself with a box sitting on site number 1. I can send you the pictures of me. I opened up a box and I was like going, okay, here's this item.
Okay.
Here's this item. Here's this item. And then after I did the whole caloric intake again, post cooking, post preparation, not pre-cook.
Sure.
Then what's the total calories in this big old box? Okay. Well, if GHF uses the metric by meal and their metric is 5 people, 3.5 for 3 meals a day, well, then that's 52.5 per box. So if I take that total and divide it by 52.5, that's 200 per meal. So even if I'm giving them the 3 meals a day, that's 600 calories a day. But because of the amount of volume that's gone in, if you were to take that and divide it out, they're only eating every 1.5 days. Every 1.5 days, you're getting 600 calories. You have to burn more than that just to walk to the site to get it.
Actually, believe it or not, the numbers are less than that. If you were to go off my stats I stated earlier, meals delivered, just based on meals delivered to population, they're getting 0.7 meals per day right now between the World Food Program and GHF that's actually delivered in hand. 0.7 meals per day. So that's
adding the World Food Program piece in there. Okay. I'm talking about specifically the GHF piece, but
right. So the World Food Program and the GHF, running off my numbers, goes down to like 0.7 meals a day, which is not enough, which I've got to get to some of these questions because I believe this is going to be part 1. Yes. So we're going to we're going to be able to go over some of the stuff, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion because it goes into the matter of
Well, I think it's the international
what,
community's fault personally.
yes, I
1,000%.
agree.
I blame all this shit on the international community.
I absolutely agree.
All right. So, Jedi asked, well, one, I have so many dang questions that are sitting in here. It's not even funny, man. You and I have been talking so much that I haven't even paid attention to what's going on over here. So I've got to address this.
Of course.
Yeah, if you don't mind. And then after we go through these, man, let's end it for the night, and we can agree to another time to come back and have the
let's rest the brains and keep doing this. This is great.
Yeah, brains need rested. All right. Let's see here. I don't want to miss some stuff, and now people are dumping more questions than I said that. Jedi came in with, I believe it's $7.99 Australian, which I really want him to answer as well. Jedi, if you could just tag me in the comments and let me know whether or not Australia has closed their borders. I'm kind of curious. But Jedi says, let's get to the crunch as to explaining why you begged for your job back. In terms of your credibility, everything else is background noise. Okay. So he is referring to he is referring to the text by GHF that they ended up putting out. I believe it was text and or email of you asking for your job back. And I had explained until I see some other portions of certain things that I am not prepared yet to say that you
see
that you quit
entirety of
on the 30th. And so this is clear to explain, which is why you and I are having this discussion, right? In order for me to say that you quit on the 30th, I require more proof now, based on some things that I have seen and based on some other things that I've heard. So on the 30th, I can't say that. And because of that, and because of your explanation of those things, I want some more information on that. So with that being said, I'm going to let you address the statements by the attorney.
Yeah, so I tendered my resignation. At the same time as I tendered my resignation, I had already communicated and coordinated. I did not want to leave the mission, meaning I didn't want to leave Gaza and leave the mission. I did not want to work for UG Solutions anymore. I thought that the leadership was dangerously unqualified for the jobs that they had and the qualifications that the individuals had. That was just my personal position on that. Granted, a lot of other people had already resigned because of it. I wanted to stay on the mission. I didn't want to work for UG Solutions. So simultaneous to, and when I submitted and tendered my resignation, I had already coordinated with the leadership at SRS to terminate and transition to working with SRS as an operational planner on the humanitarian assistance team. And here's why. If you consider like a military operation, humanitarian assistance, the humanitarian assistance aspect was the decisive operation. So the main effort. Security, shaping effort. Logistics, shaping effort. I wanted to be part of that decisive. Was the security piece important?
Absolutely.
Sure. But there's guys out there that are far better qualified to carry a weapon and pull security on a site than me. I wanted to use my skills where I thought that they could be most valuable. And I wanted to stay on the mission, but I did not want to work for UG Solutions. Okay. When I terminated my contract, that following day, we went into the Iran-Israel war, and everything kind of went into this stasis. And I was waiting for my new contract because UG Solutions agreed. UG Solutions, Dan Gill, the guy that was the in-country W-2 employee kind of head guy, they had already agreed terminate, and I'd go to SRS and I'd stay and I'd work humanitarian. That had already been agreed. And then I'm waiting and I'm waiting. At that point, we'd been hit with missiles in Beersheba almost every day. And yeah, then at that point, 24th of June, I was tired of waiting and I was ready to go home. And on the 24th of June, UG Solutions provided me with a letter that said, "Thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your flexibility and your support to the mission. If you would like to work for UG Solutions again, please let us know. And I provided that documentation.
So
I wasn't fired.
there was something also that was really interesting that you provided to me, which is, again, is why I say that I need some more information other than some statements at this point. You provided me with proof that you got paid to, what day was it?
The 26th of June.
So he did, in fact, provide me with proof that he was getting paid up to the 26th of June. Mr. Aguilar, your contract, what does it state upon termination? As far as
The
pay is
contract
concerned.
clearly states that upon termination, pay will end immediately, and that the contractor is responsible for all of their pay to get back home from the mission location.
So that's it. So they will pay for your travel home.
No, if you're terminated, they will not pay for your travel home.
Oh, the contractor, excuse me, is responsible. Excuse me. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Right. And
If
I
you
have
are
that
terminated,
contract.
you are terminated, your pay ends, and you, the independent contractor, are responsible for getting yourself home.
Okay. So I have yet to read through the entirety of your contract to validate that, but I have read through other ones and seen a line to that effect, to the best of my recollection. So the fact that you were getting paid by them and you have documented proof you were getting paid by them further, that's either a dang clerical error on their part, or
No, it's in writing.
or you were not terminated.
It's in writing,
Which is why I
from
want
the
more
COO
information.
of UG Solutions that said, until, we're going to continue to pay you, stay on the mission location. We will figure out the writing of the new contract. And then they continued to not only pay me, cover my lodging, cover my per diem, my life insurance policy they had with us. And then when it was time for me when I was like, okay, I'm not
Right.
waiting anymore. I'm not going to work for UG Solutions. If this new contract that we talked about is not going to come through based on whatever's going on, then I'm ready to go home now. I'm tired of getting rocketed by Iran. So that's, that I was fully prepared that
So
buying my own plane ticket home, making my own way home, and
it's
UG
funny
Solutions
because-
said, "Oh, no, we're going to pay for everything for you."
it's
I
funny
sent you
because
those receipts.
it's funny because I talk to guys all of the time about there's more shit going on than you realize, and you need to listen. When I tell you that I've read that and words to that effect in other contracts, and when I've seen the receipts that he was getting paid until the 26th, it's hard to justify
Paid to
and
the
state.
26th with the payday on the 27th of June.
And by the way, we're not talking about pennies here. What was your paycheck every day? So
I was
how much?
making $1,380 a day.
So multiply that by what? 14 days.
It's a lot. It's not
That's a
chump
lot of
change.
money.
It's
That's a lot of money.
for them,
They
for
would
them
have.
to just say we're going to pay you anyway.
Right. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, guys. That's
And what I
not
would,
that's
you know,
not a
just to
clerical
the-
error, and that
To the
is
community out there, what I
documented.
would like to say is that I was as a Special Forces Green Beret, a guy that grew up in the Army, that grew up a lot of the same way you all did in the job that I did, and working as hard as I could for the mission to succeed. What I'm asking is that as you look at all this, take into account, is it the paid public spokesman or the paid contract lawyer that get paid to they get paid to discredit me.
It is important. It is important for people to realize, number one, you got to understand that him and I going into this, and we still don't see eye to eye,
Sure.
but I'm still an honest human being, and I'll sit here and go, I can't say that.
I mean,
And if I promise you,
yeah.
I've seen more. I've seen more paperwork, and I've talked to more people than anybody in the chat sitting here that's saying either of us are lying right now. I promise you that, and I feel
well, just go
like
through and
hopefully,
talk
I
to
feel
many
like
of the other people that
I
have
feel
resigned
like-
as well, and why they resigned.
I feel like I have, and I feel like at least at a minimum, with the amount of honesty that I've been giving you, that exists, and there's reasons. Number one, that I'm not providing you guys all of the evidence because people have contracts. Number one. Number two, there's still men that are on the ground and they are in a combat zone. And it would be damn foolish and irresponsible of me or him to be releasing all of that stuff. You might not like it, but that's the situation in which you find yourself. I'm in a trusted position to where I am not going to screw people over, and people trust in me to do the right thing. And I'm not going to break that trust, period. But I will sit here and I will vouch and I will put my name on it and I will tell you that I've seen these things and I've talked to these people, whether you like it or not. You can choose to believe me when I tell you that it exists, or you can't. And I want you to go back and I want you to look at the statements that I've made, and I want you to know how much crow I'm eating by making this podcast. And I'm doing it because currently, at this moment in time, it is the honest and it is the right thing to do. And you can take that as an answer, or you can fuck off. I'm a man of my word, and I will stand by that. Danny Goland, when he said the tank shot around at a car, do you recall the distance?
Well, let's see. The northwest corner of site number 4, about 400 meters to the Wadi Bridge, to where the car was parked on the other side. Say it was probably 550
Okay.
meters.
Okay. So I'm going to address this one. Kane Corso Mom says, wait, so Matt believes him now. Matt believes that I don't have enough information to make the statement, and I have seen things that would validate a lot of his claims. I do not have the amount of information to say that what he just stated is true. What I do know in this case is that IDF tanks were regularly operating in a very close proximity to GHF sites, and that based on the evidence I've seen and the people that I've talked to, and some of the people that have lied to me, that what he stated is a possibility. Because those people, upon lying, lose credibility. Period. And I'm not going to put forth a lie. And you can take that as an answer. You might not like it. You might not like it one tiny freaking bit, but I'm going to tell you straight, whether you like it or not. Last time I checked, this wasn't Circle Jerk Podcast. If you want that, go somewhere else. I'm here to do this, and I want you to think about what I have at stake by stating that. I don't give a shit what you think. I care about telling the truth. Cletus, Matt just go for the jugular on this line, Pogue, future Democrat politician. You ever wear blue cord?
I commissioned as an infantry officer and took
Did you
my
ever get a
infantry
Purple
platoon to
Heart wearing a blue
Fallujah.
cord?
Yeah,
Did you ever fight in combat in, say, Fallujah? Missoula?
yeah.
Were you wearing a blue cord at the time, or at least was one hanging in your closet at home?
Oh, I wore my blue cord all the way until I was a senior captain. before I
No,
went
you
to the
weren't
Q
wearing
Force.
that shit in Iraq. Come on, let's be honest.
I had it in my pocket. No,
No, you did
but
not.
yeah, I was.
It's a
I was an
makeshift
11
tourniquet.
Alpha. I commissioned as an 11 Alpha, Ranger School, IOBC at Fort Benning, Georgia, and I led my infantry platoon through 19 months of combat in Iraq when they extended us during the early extension days. So, a Pogue, that hurts. Wow.
To be fair, we both got a Pogue MOS afterwards.
Oh,
That's, I mean, by definition. We got CIB.
Oh.
You can get a CIB there, but technically, by the way, do you know the origins of the word Pogue?
isn't it personnel other than grunt?
Do you know the origins of where the term grunt came from?
No.
Grunt. Very interesting story. Korean War. And they were drafting dudes, shoving them into the service and everything like that. Grunt, ground unit untrained. It was literally dudes that got trained to shoot rifles and thrown to the front lines. You were a grunt. You were an untrained ground unit. So
Damn.
being a grunt technically is not, I mean, yeah. All right.
I didn't know that.
Tom,
Yeah, that's good.
Tom,
That's good to know.
Tom Bones. I've said it before and I'll say it again. War is cruelty and you cannot define it. William Sherman. Jedi. 1. Which country has done more than Israel to provide aid in a war zone like this? I'm going to be honest. I don't think another country other than Israel has been in this precarious of an environment and basically be forced, if you will, to provide aid. I will tell you that I'm not aware of another country between 2005 and 2023 that's provided that much free shit to another country. Other than the United States, we give out free stuff all the time. That's a whole other discussion. But sending electricity across of a border, providing the water and all that other crap while people shoot rockets, as you know, I don't believe another country on the earth would have done that. Yeah. Let's see. Jedi, has he explained his messages begging to be hired? Yeah, we just kind of went over that. And that seems to refute his claims to resign. And that's what we just talked about, which was what we call exculpatory evidence, which would be your contract. Number 1, that states you don't get paid and you're responsible for your trip home. And you were paid for your trip home. Not only were you paid for your trip home, they were really nice about it. And on top of that,
they also
you got
paid me a
all the
full
way
pay period. When I, if they terminated me on the 12th or 13th, as they say, if you notice that all of my pay slips that I gave you, that pay period ended, they could have just organically just stopped my pay.
Right.
They initiated another pay period to continue to pay me.
So this is what we call exculpatory evidence, ladies and gentlemen. And again, when I have a false statement, a statement that I know to be false, which is Mr. Aguilar was in Gaza multiple times at every site. I know that to be true, and I see that statement. It makes me call other ones into question. And if you're a critical thinker and you're not a dumbass, it should also open your eyeballs and make you go, maybe I need to look at other stuff as well. Danny Golan, the whole place is a war zone. Terrorists can pop up from underground anywhere in regards to our conversation from earlier. Sky God, regarding the war zone, what is his knowledge of the tunnel systems that exist in Gaza? Do you have one right outside of your site?
Yeah, we learned. What we learned is that when Israel says, "Hey, look, Hamas was getting billions of dollars in aid over the last 8 years, and what'd they do with it?" Well, they built tunnels with it. I'll tell you that. These tunnels are, you've seen some of them in video where they're pretty elaborate. Some of these, like the ones that was under the Sufa hospital, there's like 3 levels of like tunnel. So you may hit that first level of tunnels and you think you destroyed it. There's an entire other tunnel system underneath it. That's why this tunnel system is so Hold
on, wait a minute. Yeah, so you're saying that. So you're actually vouching for some of the stuff that the IDF has came out with. That they are like layered, in-depth tunnel systems. Like it's not just like you go down in one. You're talking like.
Oh no! Yeah, absolutely. Like what the IDF's assessment of the tunnel systems and the fighting and the absolutely yes. There's layered tunnel systems. Yes.
Yeah, that's freaking wild, man. Only time I dealt with anything like that was in Nangarhar. And I remember going to one, and that thing reminded me of shit that I saw from like Vietnam movies. And I mean, tunnel ratting. You're literally tunnel ratting. You're stripping kit, grabbing a pistol and a flashlight, and you're going. I learned really hard that you don't frag them.
They're full stand-up living quarters. I mean, these are some elaborate tunnels. And where initially they thought there was just that one layer about 6 to 8 feet underground. No, there's multiple depths. That's why my fear is that if Israel goes into this full occupation, that it's gonna get real ugly, because we really don't know the tunnel network and the system. If you recall, in other places like in Raqqa the buildings, like they had tunneled through the walls of all the apartments, so they had like these systems within the buildings. They weren't tunnels, but they were in the buildings, to where that was devastating for the SDF in Raqqa. And I full occupation into Gaza with the tunnel system and the crowdedness of it, man. It's just I just can't envision it. I can't envision victory in that quagmire.
It's a poop storm. Jedi says as a lawyer, I can say that the fact that a contract is terminated does not often absolve company from paying return trip. They are not consistent.
That's what the contract says. I didn't write the contract. I mean,
But
you can read the contract.
and you agreed to it, and I feel like that is something that
Yeah.
a company with plenty of money would be able to take you to court and be like, he agreed to this. We're cutting his pay, and he's going home. Especially if they were not happy with your performance and you're a drain on the system. And then again,
Regardless, if I was going to fight it in court, what I'm saying is that the principle is that they have a contract that says if we terminate you, your pay stops and you have to get yourself home.
like
Now,
I said, it's
could I fight
exculpatory
that in a court of
evidence.
law? Sure. But they continue to pay me and then paid for my flight home. So
Again.
if they're saying if A then B, but B then A doesn't equal A.
Right. It's bad math. It's bad math. At the end of the day, it's common sense. It's bad math. And there might be, a clause that goes in there, maybe that something that you and I overlooked. Hell if I know, man. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, it's enough grounds for me to still question at this point. Right. And I, what did I tell you? That I want to see certain things in order for me to say yay or nay. And I'm not going to condemn you to that until I see those certain things. I won't do it. And I prayed on this and I sat back and I looked at it. And at one point I was just like, okay, I'm not convinced at this point that I can listen to that I can state as a fact that this is what happened based on the totality of the circumstances, everything that I know right now. I cannot honestly state that I believe 100% either side. I think there might be some truth sprinkled in on both. But right now, I can't even tell you if I'm leaning in one side. I'm saying that there's so much BS that's out there that's floating around. For example, they pull up your termination letter saying that you fabricated a document and that the metadata on the document that you gave was fabricated based on the metadata. Then they provide metadata for theirs saying that you can see here. Is that correct? So how would you explain that?
On the document that they had, those documents were PDFs. So here's what you have to realize in this tit for tat with the media and GHF is that all those documents that GHF had that they said, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this, they got from the Wall Street Journal or whoever it was that had it. That was so what the Wall Street Journal is, they say, okay, Mr. Aguilar, you say this, we're going to contact GHF to verify. We're going to do our due course. We're going to do our due diligence. Mm-hmm. And they sent them all of my files in a PDF, one giant PDF. And the date that PDF was created by the reporter that compiled it and sent it was the date they made the PDF. If you look at the Word document on the day that my termination letter was created, it is the 12th of June at 7:38 in the morning when I typed it up, and on the 12th of June at 7:49 when I printed it. Why would I type a document and print it on the 6th of June, or excuse me, on the 12th of June?
You still have that?
I absolutely do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll send you the Word document that has the original metadata that shows when it was written, when it was printed.
Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that so that I can vouch for that. Because that's, again, I am compiling as much information as I can so I can say, you know what? I don't find you credible anymore. And whoever you is wherever you falls. Like you and I had this discussion. I told you going into this, you can tell it, but what did I tell? What did I tell you going into this? Did I tell you that I'm going to side with you or I'm going to side with GHF? What did I say?
No, that you're going to make an honest assessment based on facts, just like the name of your show. Right.
That I am going to give an honest assessment. Do you feel that I have given you an honest shake? Do you feel that we've agreed on everything? Do you feel like we've agreed on everything?
We have not agreed on everything, and it's likely that we ever will agree on everything. If we agreed on everything, we wouldn't be Green Berets. Green Berets never agree on everything.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm not an idiot, and I know enough to know that there's shady shit that happens, and not all people are to be trusted. And I know that there is this famous what do we call it? Acronym CYA, and I feel like there could be some of that going on, and I don't like it, and I also don't like being lied to. There's a lot of again, just think about it. When
and you've heard this from other sources, not just me. You've heard this from people that you've known and that you trust, that you've known a lot longer than me. But when you think about all the things that were done in terms of no no rules of engagement, no SOP, no all these things that responsible companies do that weren't done, does it shock you that now there's going to be, I'm telling you, the contract ends on the 21st of August.
I'm telling
When
you
everybody
also
comes
that
home-
some of those, hold on.
Yeah.
I want to validate something that you just said. When I first heard that, I was like, that's got to be bullshit. When I hear it from multiple people, it starts to get more weight. And that was one of the things that ended up coming out. ROEs. Another thing that ended up coming out was also some of the stuff that you stated about munitions. Another thing that, like, all of these things, through conversation, I end up discovering.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a hell of a lot more to it. And I have to, at this point in time, tell people that you have to trust me and you have to have faith in me, that there's a reason you're here and there's a reason you listen. And that would be one of them. You guys have all, like I said, I have eaten plenty of crow, and I don't mind doing it if it's honest. And I'm doing my best to do that. Right now, there is more than enough for me to stand back and say, I'm not going to release this document, and I'm not going to state that this is what happened after viewing everything. And after some seriously questionable things that I've came across. That would give me reason to believe that somebody would pull the CYA card.
Mm-hmm. A lot of money on the table.
Right. Money makes people do dumb things. Facts. I am comfortable ending it there for the evening. We've been going for 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'm not sure if you've done an interview that long, but it's good to take a break. There is more than enough time. More than enough time. We can schedule another. We can do it tomorrow. We can do it whenever. I don't care. We can do it midday, so we're not up till like forever. But I started late tonight because I wanted to make sure that I was confident before I came on here after reviewing things to make sure that we were good to go. Right? So I feel confident in the statements I've made thus far. And I'm going to continue on that. And that is all subject to change because this situation, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, is ever evolving. Closing statements for you, sir.
No, I appreciate the discussion and that when I contacted you and you called me back and we're talking, that's we don't have to agree on everything, and we likely won't, but having the conversation and talking through things, especially like it does genuinely truly matter to me that as a fellow Green Beret, what your thoughts and what your input and what your questions are. Like that's team room life, right? In a team room with a green, you speak your mind. You don't hold back. So I value what you think as a Green Beret. I value what other Green Berets think. So,
and did I give you an easy ride during our discussion?
Oh, of course not.
No. And vice versa.
Yeah. And it's good.
And you have provided me additional information that was not available to me before. And I've reviewed said information, not even all of it, because there's so damn much. I've got more information that I have to review. I have more things that I have to digest and take in.
You might come across something with the download that I sent you in videos that I didn't even catch, because there's so much in there that I haven't even
let's take that one image that I sent you, which is can't tell everybody what it is.
Yeah.
But it is 100% validates tanks operating in the vicinity. That is undeniable proof for anybody that knows what they were looking at. The moment I saw that, I said, shit. Yeah.
And that's right. It's right there.
It's like you could spit on it.
You could spit on it. It's right there.
Right. So that within itself made me go, shit. That to a lay person that is unfamiliar with military operations, they'd look right over it. Yep. But again, this is why we look at these things, and this is why I'm able to come out and make the statements that I am. When I see that type of stuff that we're talking about, that is what makes me go, somebody's lying. And I don't like that. I don't like liars. And I'm not going to sit here and be one either. Whether or not
Yeah, when
it's
someone says that-
favorable for my viewership or not, I'm not going to lie.
When someone says that, hey, a tank was only called up once at one location, I mean, you could look at the data and see multiple locations with.
I don't need data.
with the
That
tank
one
sitting there.
image that we're talking about, just that
Yeah.
one image proves you don't even have to have an armored vehicle there.
Yep.
You don't. No
No,
armor needs to be
you saw
present
it,
in
yeah.
that photo for me to go, it's probably right over here. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? Because that's exactly what those are built for. I ain't dealing with
Yep.
that crap. Now, there's other aspects of to that go into place, which I had mentioned to you. It wasn't like I was like, oh, okay, so this thing exists. Therefore, no, there's additional evidence in that photograph that you look at that you
Yes.
go, this is a regularly occurring thing. Period.
Yep.
And I cannot honestly state otherwise at all. I would like if anybody else that knew what the hell they were talking about was shown that one particular image and stated that that's not what happened, I would call them a freaking moron and say that they have no idea what they're talking about and they have no business talking on the subject whatsoever. None. But it exists. I saw it with my own eyes, along with a hell of a lot more than that. So that, and that's not saying I saw war crimes, minus the one
No.
thing that I agree is not okay. I don't know how contractors fall underneath war crimes. Blackwater, hell, man, I don't know, but shit, that's not okay. It's not
Well, so
okay
that's
to say,
why-
it's not okay to say warning shot and go that far. I mean, shit, man, maybe there was like 100 people, but even then, like that rapid of a burst from, I don't know the distance, but from what I heard about marksmanship, and I'm going to stop right here because there's other things that also go into play that would cause that to happen, which again,
Yes.
in my opinion, those other things likely went, I'm not even going to go there. Because
Yeah,
before I
it's
make that statement,
Yeah.
I want more shit in black and white.
And you have a lot of the context now to those things to where one simple act, there's more to it than that, right? And you have that information. You've seen those things now to know that, to just something to consider that.
Well, again,
Yeah.
it also goes beyond, in my opinion, that situation and what occurred there likely should fall on leadership as well. Not from leadership control standpoint
Yeah.
on the ground, but the planning behind what took place and some things that should have happened that, to my knowledge, that I've been told did not occur. And not as an isolated incident, but at large. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Just let me say, if my battalion was in the most important mission in the world, the mission they were doing and so important, and I was the battalion commander, and out of 76 days, I only went to go see my men one time, I'd be a pretty shitty leader.
It's not even that.
So,
I'm talking
at
about I'm talking about a skill level 1 task that wasn't
Yes.
accomplished.
Yes,
And I'm going to
That's
leave
right.
it at that.
that's right. Skill level 1.
A skill level 1 task that wasn't accomplished, or so I've been told by numerous sources across the board, that not a snowball's chance in hell would I want to be in that man's shoes on that day, should things go south.
That's right.
So I'm going to leave it at that, man, and we're going to jump off. And
Yep.
we
And see
will
each
have
other
a
soon.
part 2, and we will argue more.
Yep.
We'll cover more. We'll cover more when we come back. We will cover more. And I can't give you guys a date and time because both him and I need to sleep, right? But we will have.
Well, by the time we're done talking, we're going to solve this war.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the one thing that we agree on is that the international community is negligent. Very
Yes.
grossly negligent. I think the international community is negligent for allowing things to get to the point that they had without intervening prior to 2023, prior to 2005, prior, dude, hell, after 67, Like, at what point are you going to realize that sometimes diplomacy doesn't work and somebody's got to eat a shit sandwich and call it a day? I don't know. Right? But what I do know is it's wrong to blame the people of today for the sins that their grandparents made unless you buy into the same bullshit. You know? And that goes on. I'm done. I'm done with the conversation. That part just starts irking me. But we can get into that later.
All right.
But the bottom line is I don't have the correct amount of information right now. And I am not sold one way or the other 100%. And I have seen things that I deem credible that I decided to allow you to come here and actually make statements about what you say you saw. Because
you're very gracious.
Well, it's not that, man. It's because you have proof and facts that those circumstances were in place where what you described is a possibility. Not even a possibility. Like, shit. It would be dumb of me not to. I wouldn't have respect for myself. You know what I mean? Based off of what I've seen. I don't know how else to explain that to people. I have to. I have no respect at the end of the day for myself. I don't give a shit whether or not everybody else respects me. I go to bed at night sleeping good, knowing that as far as today went, I did the right thing. With the information that I had today, I made the best freaking call on what I had. That's what I did today. That's it. And I think you provided information to the best of your ability, to the best of your recollection, to be determined in the rule of public opinion. Like, honestly, at this point, whether or not people believe you, period. And when I state, I hope it's got some weight behind it, particularly in this community, when I state that there's enough evidence for me to at least platform and allow you to state your mind and describe situations correctly and look at where we're at 3 hours later.
Yeah.
It took us easily an hour just to get through tank fire and everything else by properly explaining the situation on the ground.
Yep.
And we haven't even gotten to the complexities of the situation which those men face.
That's right.
So y'all can sit here and judge all you want, but I'm just stating what I know to be true. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
All right, be safe, and I'll see you soon.
Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's been a long run. It's been a 3-hour stream, and I want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Peace, love, happiness. God bless. I'm out of here.